A long, long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, people went out to make loads of money. Welcome to
Hell
an
yeah!
Welcome to another Lore Ramblings. The name is Adam.
I'm Impcit, and as your Imperial advisor, I'm here to show you the wonderful economic benefits of the corporate sector.
That's going to be a benefit, but the other thing is we're going to also learn a little bit about Han Solo. The real Han Solo, not the one that was killed by, well, that one guy in that one terrible movie.
So this is one of the, I don't know if it was the first or it's one of the West End Games source books for the West End Games D6 Star Wars RPG.
A long-running series that at its peak was actually one of the most played TTRPGs of all time. I'm not even kidding. This series did really well to the point I think it made it like number 5. It actually kind of competed with at least the people trying to compete with Dungeons and Dragons to give you an idea. That's quite impressive.
Yes.
And this one covers some of the earliest material that was actually written for the expanded universe, because there was a trilogy of books that covered Han Solo's combination of backstory and him settling the score in an area called the corporate sector, which is why the book for today is called Han Solo and the Corporate Sector. Not only is it the corporate sector we're going to talk about our favorite miserable Corellian who watches his son turn to the dark side like a loser.
Well, that's actually two versions of Han Solo.
Yeah, don't you like how no matter the universe, his son will inevitably become a loser?
Yeah. At least his daughter becomes an empress.
True, in one timeline, the good timeline, the better timeline.
Yes. So the thing about the corporate sector and why it was set up is because the book series Han Solo's Adventures came out in 1979. I think the Splinter of the Mind's Eye had come out before, but this was trying to be exploring other stuff with Star Wars.
Oh
And
yeah, this was like before even The Empire Strikes Back, isn't it?
this is yeah. So we basically had this, the comics, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and the holiday special.
Yeah, you either had the Green Bunny or these books. That's how old this is. That's how old the corporate sector is. It's to the point where it's some of the first expanded material that was made.
And hence why it has nothing to do with the Empire. It was entirely set up to be its own separate part of the universe. Therefore, I guess they didn't have to interfere of like, oh, what if Darth Vader shows up and everything?
I think a lot of it had to do with George Lucas going, well, I don't really know whether or not this is a good idea. I don't really have an idea on what I have right now. I know what I want in my stories, but I don't know if I want you guys to mess with it. I don't know.
Just just don't add anything about going into the micro universe of the midichlorians.
Also, please don't talk about Luke getting married. Oh, you already did that. I'm not happy about that, but all right, I'll accept it. Also, yes, George Lucas did not like Luke getting married to Mara. Not even kidding.
I think he mellowed out. I mean, hey, it
He
worked out
didn't
for him in the
like it,
end.
but he
She
accepted it.
died. She
Oh,
died
thank
in the
God
end.
she's dead. Oh, thank God she's dead. That was
Oh,
that was George Lucas's first thought. Oh, good, she's dead.
oh, the Skywalkers have such a tragic life. But uh, uh, obviously, they had to include new stuff on Han Solo and Chewbacca. They were, I'd argue, the standout characters.
I wouldn't say they were the standout characters, but they were one of the big three.
It would be that Vader and the droids.
What? You gonna shit on a good old Luke like that, little farm boy?
I
He
mean,
is the
yeah, but
protagonist.
he is the protagonist. But I think what captured people's imaginations, well, one, the droids were droids. Vader looked intimidating. Han and Chewbacca had a starship.
And on top of that, just the way he was introduced as this greasy slime ball who just shot a motherfucker. I mean, admittedly, he was gonna get shot back first, but still, that's very
I mean,
memorable.
to be quite honest, if we look at like the inspirations for Star Wars with a lot of the space operas, Han Solo would be the main character.
Well, here's the other thing. It's also based on a lot of Tokugawa films. In fact, the droids were actually based on two comedy characters, if I remember right, from I think it was the Secret Fortress.
When in doubt, it is related to the Secret Fortress with Star Wars.
I do know that it was based on I know it was based on a set of characters it was like a pair of courtiers whose entire thing was they were supposed to be comedy, like the comedy part of the film.
Mm.
That's why C3PO had that posh accent and everything. It was kind of to play up that. I also like this just image of this land speeder with, is that like a weird skull on it? I don't know, but I like it.
No, I think it's just the front end.
It looks a bit
But
different
at,
from the ones I'm used to. It looks more like a
but as this
motorcycle.
yeah,
Maybe they didn't know.
yeah, but as this source book came out in 1993, it'd been over a decade since the books were out.
This is when they finally realized, oh yeah, we can definitely make a universe out of this. So
And I think it hit
this is one of,
just at the right it hit just at the right time because you did have it was right after this, Reagan yuppie, so you got that corporate sleazy Gordon Gekko type.
you had that. You had the 80s where it's just corporate toy commercials over and over again. And then finally, you have that aspect of this is around the time that they were bringing back the Star Wars movies on VHS. This is
Oh,
not quite around the time of the special versions of it, which introduced and removed scenes. This is like right before George Lucas started to meddle with those, but it's around the
they
time
get
the special editions came out.
like as they say. In the corporate sector, you won't see robed comp nor faithfuls holding torchlit ceremonies or merciless stormtroopers raiding settlements in search of rebels. Instead, manicured executives sip spiced wine and plan ever more exotic vacations. Anxiety-ridden middle overseers plot and backstab each other for meaningless perks and favors. Company
What page are you
goons,
on? Because I wasn't
page
quite sure.
6,
Thank you.
page Company goons turn a blind eye to crime and depravity as long as the stock prices hold. Countless workers slave in duct-filled microcubicles, all for the greater glory and profit of the corporate sector authority.
So the corporate sector is an interesting concept because, as mentioned, this was made really early in the lore of Star Wars. That's why it has almost nothing to do with the Empire. Because at the time, we didn't really know how much the Empire controlled. And this actually kind of does make sense because remember, it's kind of hinted that their authority on Tatooine was pretty minor. They had control over the like the closer systems, but in the outer reaches, not so much. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? That
It
something so
certainly
far out in
does.
the sticks
We
is
also, yeah, we didn't have an idea of how big the Empire was, where everything was in the galaxy,
I mean, at the time, we didn't even know that the Emperor was a bad guy. We thought
or
he
that
might
he,
have been a puppet by the military or something.
yeah.
Because remember, this is before good old Palpatine revealed himself to be behind everything. Yes, including the massive amounts of space cocaine that the executives take. I partake in many dark galas with them. Zerka is my slave, as they enslave the others. Speaking of which, West End Games, I think, is the one that came up with the concept of Zerka arms.
Oh, really?
I think they are. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure they were the ones that invented Zerka as a company.
And then as they begin, they kind of detail
Well, it
Han and
starts with
Chewie
Han and
going over.
Chewie because he's kind of the main protagonist of these.
Mm,
Basically, this was one of the earliest trilogies. It makes sense that you have to kind of talk about what these two were up to.
Well, I guess to show the other thing of just time evolving, it says this was taken from an interview between a director of research for the New Republic and General Han Solo retired, um, with comments by Chewbacca and or Leia Organa Solo, his wife.
I think this is actually even before the whole new Jedi Order thing. Yeah,
Oh,
93. It
yeah,
would be.
yeah, no,
It would be before his son became a failure and fuck up again.
before his son was even around, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, they're. I'm going through this. They're referencing Talon Card and all these people, and kind of then connecting these older books to now the newer material.
Makes sense because again, these books were made really early on. A lot of that stuff was not necessarily made non-canon, but from what I recall, I think it was knocked out because George Lucas had an idea on canonicity ladder, where the movies were always at top. If anything contradicted the movies, they were not canon in that regard, but were treated as canon other than that. Then there was what were called higher tier canons that I think he himself personally worked on, or at least was advising. And then there was the standards, and then there was the one below that, and also there was the kind of canon, kind of not that Dave Filoni made, because the Clone Wars 2008 was like the last thing that they actually did. That's its
Hmm.
own canon, and a lot of that has to do with because Dave wanted to make his own fanfic, for better and
But
worse.
yeah, but as we go through on page 11, we get
Because
an
yeah, the entire first section is just an interview, which is nice. It really does establish the character, but still.
so it gives us a description of Han Solo, that he slick. That's what they used to call Han Solo. Not everyone, of course, and not always nicely, but it was a moniker he maintained by coming back from the more dangerous smuggling runs in the galaxy. But then it goes on to describe his origins, which was that he went to the Imperial Academy.
And that is
He did.
something that is established in those books. It's one of the first backstories for him. You actually saw that a little bit in the Solo movie, but it was bungled.
Well, because they decided to turn him into a trooper. I guess apparently the Army and the Navy aren't separate, but
In
that's the
fairness, I
Disney
don't think
thing.
they had a clue at this point. At this point, people tend to forget that there's an Imperial Army and Navy. They just see the stormtroopers and go, that's the bad guy army, right?" And you kind of
Pretty
have to
much.
just sigh, die a bit inside, and go, "Yeah." At this point, yeah. I don't even
This
think they
they
remember
yeah
anymore.
they explained that he was a skilled swoop and speeder pilot before the academy. He got the
Swoops, if you're
nickname.
wondering, are swoop bikes.
Yeah.
He was a greaser,
He tried
essentially.
he tried putting out a system flaw that endangered the training mission that he and his cadet class were on. The flight commander, commandant, derided his slick answer without putting much thought into the danger. He made Solo fly the training mission, commanding the cadet to perform one dangerous maneuver after another. And unfortunately, all of them died. All the other people in his flight died.
Given how
But he took the
risky
name
it was,
Slick.
yeah, no shit.
Yeah. They do name that he was a Corellian.
Which is also
Uh,
known for its whiskey, and apparently in modern Disney canon is responsible for Coca-Cola. Yes, Coca-Cola is now actually canon in the Star Wars universe. So you can
I wouldn't
just,
put it past.
well, in
Yeah,
fairness, in Chile, a lot of beverage companies are canon because it would just cut to they're sitting around planning something. Han's like one moment, and you just see another hand grab like a Heineken's beer.
that was Cerveza Cristal.
Cerveza Cristal, thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. So
I
eventually
kind
he
of like
graduated.
that, although that is defacing the movie. I kind of like that
It is.
idea. It's kind of
So
fun.
he graduated with honors. However, he was soon court-martialed for doing what was right, losing a career and saving a Wookiee.
And that is the thing. Chewbacca follows him specifically because Han saved his life. It's a life debt that, and Wookiees take that shit really seriously. To the point where they will actually transplant the life debt from not only the person they owe it to, but their kids because they're so long lived.
Oh yeah.
That's why Chewie was sticking around him for so long.
Uh, let's see.
But it also
He
destroyed
eventually
his career, and that's one of the reasons he kind of became a bitter asshole.
he tried reuniting with old buddy Mako Spince or Spince.
Spence, I always said Spence.
Spince gets him into the smuggling business. He gets connected to Lando Calrissian and a guy named Roa, which I believe comes back up in the New Jedi Order.
I think
Roa
so.
introduces, yeah, Roa introduces him to the wonders of Kessel.
If you're wondering where Kessel is, it's essentially surrounded by a bunch of black holes, and it is known. They even mention it. It's one of the main sources of spice. I believe it's mined by prison slaves.
Yep.
Essentially, I don't remember if this is old or new canon, but Kessel was essentially hijacked by gangs, by crime consortiums, and what they would do is they would use the slave markets to essentially man the mines to get the glitter stem, which had medicinal uses. You could use it to cure things like depression and so on. But let's be honest, it was mostly used to just party.
And let's
but it's
see.
very
Then they,
lucrative.
yeah, they meet a bunch of other people.
This is actually
Then
where
they,
Han made his Kessel Run specifically.
yep. Then he gets he gets, uh, he meets with Lando, gets the Millennium Falcon.
He won it off a
Um,
game of Sabak
yep, it actually says. But when Lando's luck turned sour during a particular Cutthroat Sabacc game, Han's dream came true. The Falcon was his.
because at this point he kind of just worked for them. He didn't have his own ship. That was his big dream.
And see, Han and Chewie meet a tech named Zala Sand. Um, I believe kind of a romantic partner at that point.
Han had, if I remember, Han did have one also. Like
He had a
it's
few,
not.
I think.
He had a few, but they never really turned out well until Leia.
But then they eventually get into the corporate sector uh, to go on to Eddy 4, main entry world, to turn in their credits for this crystalline vertex and authority cash vouchers.
Yeah, the
But,
corporate sector doesn't accept Republic credits or Empire credits. They take scrip.
yeah. The next problem, though, was getting ship permits. Solo knew Imperial armament rating regs backwards and forwards, but the authority waiver policy didn't make any sense. He obviously wasn't a pirate. He wouldn't even need weapons, except to protect against pirates and the like. Or so he told them. But the caseworker was adamant, and what saved him was an offer from Big Bungie. Yes, a character's named Big Bungie. Provides them fake IDs in exchange for some smuggling runs. And then they give us his stats based on
When he was
various time periods of
basically,
adventures.
this was, I believe, Han Solo at Star's End, so this would be where he would be at this point.
Yep.
He's still young. He's
Then
still up and coming. That's why he only has 5 dice to his blaster, for example.
yeah. Then they give us Chewbacca and his background of being from Kashyyyk.
If they go through a little more interview details, I kind of like this. It's just nice to have little bits of details just written in the style of the person.
They don't say. Oh, yes, they do say. They say that the coming of the Empire found them enslaved, and Solo saves him.
Also, since this was written in 1993, this is before the entire Chewbacca helped Yoda fight the Separatists, because the entire
Yes.
concept of the Clone Wars was not a thing yet.
Well, they also say here like that the coming of the Empire brought a terrible time for the Wookiees. Like they didn't have the idea of the
They
Clone Wars
they
yet.
didn't clarify this either yet, but essentially in later lore what happened was the Wookiees fomented 2 revolts in the same year, mainly because they were desperate to protect the Jedi that saved them from the Separatists, who tried to also enslave them. Essentially, they thought it was kind of shit that the Empire did that to the people that protected them. Also, Wookiees are pretty good judges of character. They kind of noticed that the Empire was definitely a different beast than the Republic.
Well,
They
yes, it's
rebelled.
stronger,
Yeah,
more
they
secure.
rebelled, and they got their shit pushed in. I believe their subjugation was actually one of the key negotiation treaties that allowed the Empire to work with the Trandoshans, too.
Probably because the Trandoshans love to hunt Wookiees
Oh,
because
and
they
for those of
border
you
each other,
who
kind of.
are curious what a Trandoshan is, okay, remember the big lizard thing that Captain Kirk fought? Okay, imagine that, but if it's a little bit bigger, and it's obsessed with getting the high score. The high score being body count. That is what a
And
Trandoshan is.
and if you've seen Episode 5, it's the lizard guy in the yellow jumpsuit.
Yes.
But after all that, we can go on to the actual history of the corporate sector.
Which I think is more interesting than. I mean, it's nice to learn a little bit about Han if you're not familiar with him. Like, let's say you have never gotten your hands on any of the books, but you really like the Star Wars movies and you wanted to play a West End game because West End has a lot of good stuff. This can give you a pretty good introduction into what Han's life was like before then. Also, from Not Neato, it's weird how, despite being as strong as they are, the Wookiees are always in a shit position. A lot of that has to do with their planet. Kashyyyk essentially is very difficult to develop because of the wildlife, the fauna and flora especially.
There is a reason they live above the trees.
Some of it's, I
Re-
believe, also cultural, where they are very much in tune with nature, so they're not particularly. They don't hate technology, they appreciate it, but it has to work with nature.
Hence why in episode 3, a lot of their stuff looked wooden.
It's also why they lived in tree houses even in the holiday special. Because George Lucas himself probably said, yeah, they live on top of the trees and they're one with nature.
They're probably like they're gentle folk.
Well, they are gentle until they're angry. Never piss off a
Yeah,
Wookiee. No, no, I'm not
yes.
kidding. They're strong enough to rip the arms off of even combat droids.
Yep. But the corporate sector is interesting because they're now going to explain how does this get started.
And let's just say it's not pretty.
And it starts within the expansion region, within the slice, and it was originally an experiment in corporate controlled space.
So, okay, just for a
Uh,
little bit of backstory, the Galactic Republic formed in what's called the core regions, which is near the center of the galaxy. It's not the deep center, that's deep core. It's not too close to the galactic center. It's that area in between at the edges of the bulge. That is essentially where it started, and this is where most of the active civilizations were found. That's not to say there weren't civilizations out there. A lot of advanced civilizations were out there, like well, I mean, like the Infinite Empire, for example. They came from out
Infinite
there.
Empire, the Hutts,
The Huts as well.
uh,
I
the
think
Herglic Trade Empire, the
yep.
Sith, Tion,
What's the weird slug guys? Not the Huts. There's like another weird slug race that's like spiky.
the Sea. No, I'm not. Drawing a blank here.
There's another ancient empire that's also from out there.
The Qua, the Gree.
Qua, that was what I was thinking of.
Oh, the Qua. Oh, yeah, they're really ancient.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. But essentially, that's where the Galactic Republic came. And they first started by expanding outward. I believe this is actually back when they operated more like Warhammer 40K. Because there was a period where a humanocentric cult dedicated around the goddess took over the Republic for about 1,000 years. It was an era of darkness, and it's actually one of the reasons why that you can still find to this day people like good old Grand Moff Tarkin. Because
Oh,
while
yeah.
the ideology died, the sentiment never fully went away.
And it's really funny if you look at it with Star Wars. It really is a humanocentric. Humans kind of reign supreme. A lot of the big civilizations are human. It,
Essentially, if you're not a core world people, which humans
that
are,
yeah,
you're fucked.
that is actually also the other thing. Yeah, if you're not from the rich and powerful core world, you're just fucked.
Hey, LSL 006, Pius Dea mentioned. Yeah,
Hail the
Pius Dea is
goddess.
one of my favorite weird moments of Star Wars history. But essentially, they expanded in the first group. The expansion region is after the Inner Rim was secured via a combination of trade agreements, just bloody conquest under the Crusades, and a bunch of
And if
other methods.
and if I remember correctly, the slice refers to a specific hyperspace route.
Basically, there was a section of hyperspace lanes that they found that were really stable, so the slice is called that because of how much it expanded compared to the rest of the expansion region,
But
because it
they
was
ended up,
just easier to
yeah.
travel. But basically, the Inner Rim was colonized, and what they decided instead, because colonization efforts are very expensive, let's let the corporations do it.
And they decided to do it way on the outskirts of the galaxy. In
Well,
fact,
they
if
did
you
it in the
have,
expansion region as well, and,
yeah,
and the reason why it was taken by the Galactic Republic was human conditions in that region became so poor, and by human I mean just all in general, even humans. The corporations treated them so badly that the old republic was forced to absorb it.
yeah, we're talking abuses that might make the Imperium blush
There's
and
an
say,
entire
hold
race of
on.
near humans that legitimately are riddled with cancer. They look like they are burned alive, and that is the product of their planet being exploited by the company. Zenfar, I
But
think they're
then,
called. Basically, if you're wondering,
yeah,
they look like star people, and they have like lifespans of 30 years because of the just destructive cancer on their body. I think they're born in pain.
all for profit. But that stopped then. But eventually, there came about a new group, a organization of trade unions, labor collectives, merchant associations, and other guilds um,
The concept of the
that
Trade
unite.
Federation is not necessarily new. The version that you saw in the prequels was fairly new at the time. It was one of the newer consortiums that were made, specifically to keep space lanes safe. But it's not the first. The corporate sector was made by a previous iteration.
called the Galactic Corporate Policy League. Such an innocuous name, you would have no idea that it's tied to Palpatine and the New Order. They resented these prohibitions such as slavery, world gouge mining, which, if you watched Andor Season 2, that is brought up
This is
to
also one of the. If I had to explain why a Death Star would not necessarily be seen as a weapon, I would just say, oh yeah, the giant cannon on it is specifically to gouge mine.
which,
You also know the galaxy
yeah,
is fucked when you can actually still justify it as a military weapon because of things like Mgal and the Abominors.
yep. But these groups, they long for a free hand in the outer fringes, where less advanced worlds and civilizations couldn't stand against the might of greed.
So if you're wondering, as you spin outwards from the galaxy, it's not necessarily that the worlds are less developed. It's that in a lot of cases, they kind of came out of a post-apocalypse after the Infinite Empire was done with them. And then
Or
there's the
they're just
Hutts.
building up. There's the huts, or there's the other thing of, well, they're not in Republic space, so the Jedi can't help them.
Correct. So these worlds are not necessarily poorer. In fact, there's several worlds that do rather well. Um, Naboo, for example, did pretty well despite being a mid-rim world. Although then again, it also was only relatively recently colonized by humans. They kind of did a thing to the Gungans that made it so they could never come out from the oceans.
Ah, colonization. When have you ever failed the native inhabitants?
And that's another thing. A lot of this happened from people that the reason you will find planets that are settled with core world races are they're usually dissidents that fled outward or were forced outward by their society. So these usually are not necessarily the most stable. And on top of that, a lot of crime cartels start out here. It's a wild west in terms
It
of everything.
is quite funny how Star Wars ended up becoming a critique of colonialism.
It's
You
also
could probably
a
you could
bit
probably write a
wild
whole
west.
entire yeah, you could probably write a whole entire report on the implications of how the Star Wars universe is and how it could relate to colonial theory.
That's why I think whenever Disney kind of complains about not being diverse enough, my response is, yeah, you could always include things like Bothans or fucking Trando. You can include more aliens. They're the ones that in this universe are treated like shit.
Yep. But so Palpatine enlisted the help of amoral fascists in the Transport and Power Ministries, and upon his election to the President of the Republic,
Because this is
he was
before the
able,
idea of the Supreme Chancellor.
yeah, he was able to set up a region of the space called the corporate sector.
Essentially, the best way to describe it is it's kind of similar to special economic special economic zones that the Chinese did.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, well, you can show like where it is in the galactic map.
Oh, sure. Let me do that right now. I do want to show you, and here it is. Here is the map of the corporate sector. This is an older map. Here's another version of it that kind of gives you an idea on where it is. Essentially, the corporate sector is way out in the sticks. This is actually on the edge of what's called wild space, which for
Yep,
for those curious, so there are different areas of the galaxy. The outer rim, which is where Tatooine is, that's the Wild West essentially. It even during the Republic's time, much of it was not under their control.
and
The
if you
corp
see on that map, sorry to say, if you see on the map there, you see the Sith worlds. Yeah, the entire Sith space is kind of right near there.
Yep, and on top of that, let me show the first map again. Oh, the first map again. You see wild space. So what's wild space? Wild space are areas that have been charted and navigated, but are still basically completely unknown. It is right before the unknown regions in terms of how settled it is. There's not a lot out there. This is basically Palpatine going, yes, Northrop, Boeing, AT&T and Disney, I grant to thee a fiefdom, way away from concerned eyes, to do as you please for profit for us collectively. We will benefit, and we will do 5 times returns. Ah, ha, 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 ha.
It is all I have foreseen. Record profits for this quarter.
I also foresee that one of these planets will be cracked apart to get at the delicious gooey center of its plasmic core. Make it so that I may power my new death weapon, the sun laser. It is designed to make it go nova. I'm
Unlike
not kidding, by the way.
the Galaxy Gun, the Sun Crusher, the Eclipse.
He had a lot of special projects and he needed a lot of money. So, what better way to do it than by allowing the corporations a little slice of the pie? That way he can tax the hell out of them himself because he's the one who granted them that fiefdom. In
Yep.
exchange, he's not going to send his intelligence agencies besides basic assessments to see whether or not they're following the plan.
And this undeveloped, an uninhabited region of space, rich
Allegedly
of
uninhabited.
resources, with thousands of star systems ripe for development. Apparently, corporate sector includes 30,000 stars.
I think that's a little much, but it's still pretty big. It's actually bigger than Mandalore space, for example.
And so the authority would handle every major industrial venture, handle the order, run the business operations, research, development, develop new products, promote the sale of goods within the sector without outside interference. Profits would be split among uh, shares amongst the investing companies, and they would also supply raw materials and manufactured goods to the parent companies at discounted prices. They would also give Palpatine an operations tax that would go directly to him.
Which he
Revenues
used
would
for a
go.
lot of things.
Yep. Revenues would go directly to the imperial government rather than split amongst sector, planetary, and local governments.
Yeah,
All
see,
this,
the way that the Empire was run is very similar to a lot of very inefficient authoritarian states. You could compare it to the Soviets, you can compare it to Nazi Germany. Basically, as long as the petty lords had their fiefdoms, they would always get a bit of the cut. This is Palpatine going, I want to get all of the money. So, corporations, here's this little section of space that you could just do all of the financial crimes in, as long as I get a cut. Very Romanesque. But
all of
here,
this being proposed by the great Baron Tage of Tage Co.
well, not only that, but he demanded that it get expanded.
Yeah. And we should show everyone what this brilliant genius looks like.
Oh, he has some of the greatest fashion I have ever seen in my life. Like you have not lived until you've seen this brilliant motherfucker. Look at him. I actually really like his glasses.
Oh, it's fantastic.
That's a
Remember,
still from
this
the
was,
Marvel comics that run.
yeah, this was the Marvel Comics. This guy's basically, I would say Jeff Bezos, I guess.
The best way to describe him is as the unholy love child of Jeff Bezos with the delusions of Elon Musk on ketamine.
And somehow in control of like a military industrial complex.
And on top of that, just throw in just a shade of Lex Luthor. He's not completely power hungry like Lex Luthor, but just a little bit of that ruthlessness.
Uh, Also, fun fact: one of his siblings is in episode 4. I believe it's the guy who says like, "How will the Senate be able to Senate, or how will the Empire be able to control without the bureaucracy?"
Oh yeah,
Like
that
at
is
that
him.
meeting of the Moffs. That is a different Tage.
So if you're wondering, this is where the concept of the Tage family comes from. Because originally it was just that minor character, and what happened was when they made the Han Solo trilogy, what they decided to do was use his line to kind of build what these guys would be like as a family. It's similar to how the Tarkins are actually a family of actual psychopaths. I'm not
And,
kidding. Besides Grand Moff Tarkin, the entire family on his homeworld had a habit of just being crazy. Not like
The
haha
other
crazy, more like ah yes, the skin of these filthy non-humans will make an excellent addition to my hunting lounge crazy.
the other thing about this, again, you have this guy in control of essentially an entire sector
Yeah, imagine okay,
whose
would you
whose
give
brother wait, whose brother is also a Moth or some high-ranking Imperial.
he wasn't a Grand Moff, he was just a Moff. And then there was also another relative who I think was one of the people who died on the Death Star who was a higher ranking officer but not a Moff.
Corruption, what's that?
Also, chat, do you think this guy would definitely lead to great prosperity to 30,000 worlds? Do you think this is the man that you would put in charge of a financial consortium the size of some star clusters?
And I believe in that scene he's having a laser sword fight with Luke.
He is. Yes, this man is actually crazy enough to pull out a lightsaber. You
I
know,
don't even know if it was a lightsaber,
I
but
think it
he's
might have
crazy
just been
enough
a
to
laser
duel.
sword.
He's crazy enough to duel a Jedi.
This dude literally looked at the last of the Jedi, the first new Jedi Master in decades, and he saw that and said, "Nah, I'd win."
Spoiler alert: he doesn't.
You know, he dies horribly. He dies not necessarily screaming. Well, he does die screaming, but he dies screaming in revenge. Also, not Nito. So Tarkin's just the high functioning psychopath in the family. Um, yes and no. Actually, he is the most intelligent and functional of the Tarkin family. But that's not to
But do
say
remember,
he's the only one that was.
this is the guy whose sound military theory was, let's commit horrifying atrocities.
This is one of the few things I'll give credit to Andor. I don't think they do it as well as they could have, but essentially, yes, his idea was essentially if I commit enough war crimes to show you how painful it is to fight us, you're going to have to give up or you're going to watch your family die screaming. I'll make you watch before you die too. The problem is Tarkin did not understand the original. There's an old aphorism that comes around, an old story, where two generals of the original Chinese Empire, the Qin dynasty, were late to an important meeting regarding the border defenses on the west regions of the empire. The first general mourns because he knows that because they are late, they are derelict in duty and they will be put to death. The second general then says, okay, but what is the penalty for rebellion? Also death. Both of them take their armies to proceed to fight the Qin dynasty, and that is the first beginnings of its ending. That is something Tarkin never understood. That is something he could never understand. And that is why it bit him in the butt.
But something we can understand is why an Imperial state would love this sector.
Because here's the
Because,
thing Palpatine is very much wanting full control, the whole Sith thing. But there's a lot of benefits to leaving little sections not under your control.
like, for instance, so the corporate sector will give the Empire 3% of its total gross product. And again, paid directly to the Treasury. 9%
Notice
of
he
all
says
materials.
product, not profit. So they can't play funny games about, oh, we didn't actually make profit this year, Your Grace. They can't do that. Your Dark Majesty, they can't do that. No, I want 3% of what you make. He's not stupid. He knows that what they would do if he said profit.
Yeah, I did not catch that. That's brilliant. But 9% of all materials and 20% of strategic rare elements is given to the Empire for its military buildup.
Essentially, this is Palpatine going, I know you're going to blow up planets and build empires financially on the bones of millions. I don't care about that. I just want to make sure that my giant lasers have enough money.
And all the costs of not needing additional Moth, not needing additional sector fleet, and all the resources within.
That's the other
That's
thing.
quite
He
a bargain.
forced them to build their own fleets. That sounds like a bad idea, but think about it like that. That's money they have to put into maintaining that area and preventing pirates. Because also, here's the other thing it's out in the sticks. It's not near hut space, but it's far enough away from anything good that they kind of have to have a strong navy. That's power
And
projection without paying for it. And on top of that, that's a budget that they have to cover, meaning they can't hoard it to try to overthrow him.
And because it's a corporation that would be making those navies, I think they could tack that onto gross product.
And on top of that, if they build new designs, guess what Compnor can do? They don't necessarily have a lot of operatives, but they can always check the wares.
Yep. So let's
So
see.
if they build a new interesting, say, destroyer, they could take it.
So there's voting sponsors and contributing sponsoring. Voting sponsors obviously get the initial startup credit of 50 quadrillion credits.
So, okay, this is actually something that I really like this book doing. A lot of people, whenever they talk about a company in the future, like a cyberpunk dystopian company, we're really bad at understanding the amount of money needed to do things. To even get a seat in this council, you need to have quadrillions. That is 1,000 times more than Jeff Bezos has. Amazon as a company is 1/1000th of the ability of this, and it's the #1 shipping industry in the world. That is the scale that you are dealing with in terms of businesses. And to these companies, that's an impressive amount of money, but they probably have quintillions. That's how much they
Maybe
work with.
septillions.
That's how much they work with.
Because remember, it's a galactic business.
This is this is why you can have a junior executive have an army of like 10,000 guys as a mercenary protection army. He could be a warlord on a planet, but he would be a junior executive. He'd still be the coffee boy for the actual like higher up executives. Not even the
Mhm.
CEO. I'm talking this could be this junior executive of special projects and his special projects portfolio is specifically ways to extend the lifespan of slaves. Not necessarily even anything like building a better mining laser. That's how big these companies are. Like,
But
even a
if you're,
branch director probably has dozens of worlds under his belt, or
yeah,
her belt. It doesn't matter.
but if you're not able to have that much of an investment, you can be a contributing sponsor. They are not guaranteed a voting position, as the number of contributing sponsor seats equal to 1/3 the total number of board seats.
To guarantee that they cannot ever, under any circumstance, usurp the board. If you're wondering, this
Yep.
is a bit of an Americanism. Essentially, 1/3 of a contributor would allow you to not even be able to stop a bill, for example, if it uses 2/3 majority.
Typically, you need just about 50 trillion credits.
So technically, I think Jeff Bezos could become a contributing sponsor to the corporate sector.
Perhaps a minor one. He might need to take a loan.
He
But
would
I
have
know
to
the
take a
Mons can
loan,
be
but he
very
could pull it
receptive.
off.
Yeah. They don't receive discounts on bulk goods or raw materials, but the discounts were more than sufficient for the investment. As expensive as sponsorship seems to be, the return on investment is perhaps up to 360% in some years. And there are currently 1,000 major companies on the waiting list.
So, to give you an idea
Because
on your
remember,
return,
just one thing. Because remember, you basically have no governing authority regarding your ability to make profit in this sector.
also, those return rates, if you have any understanding of finances, you would be screaming right about now because it's considered insane if you get a return rate of up to 5%, depending on how you invest. This is tripling your money every. This is legitimately the equivalent of Bernie Madoff, only worse. Madoff himself wouldn't even recommend numbers this much. Madoff
And the
suggested a
difference
10% raise each year.
and the difference is it is legitimately not a scam.
Well, I mean, actually, it could be, but it would be a long-term scheme. And they have enough of an economy that they have enough suckers that it's not going to burn down at least in the next few years.
Though then we have
This
some
is
of the
essentially
original.
this is essentially a star cluster sized Ponzi scheme. It is. Like at the end of the day, this is because they're taking money from these sponsors to further invest. The difference is you actually get returns because the scale of economy is so insane.
Yeah. But
So
that
that
brings
Ponzi
us to
scheme would
then
take
the
decades to burn out.
yeah. But that brings us to the original signatory sponsors. And first up is the Tag Company. It's
Tactical.
yep, predominantly a mining and heavy manufacturing. Uh, so they also have repulsor lift vehicles. They have computers, one of the top 20 in the core worlds. They also own the Tage Restaurant Association, interested in macro farming, and Biscuit Baron,
Fun
the
fact.
largest restaurant chain in the empire.
Fun fact, Biscuit Baron is also responsible for two almost world-ending threats. I'm not kidding. They once attempted to make an instant biscuit mix that was to be sold to people. Uh, in both cases, they gained sentience and almost ate an entire world of its biomass. I'm not kidding. This is an actual thing in Star Wars. They accidentally combined it with Bantha DNA. It did not go well.
They're also trying to get into
By the way, for
uh,
those wondering, there is a logo for Biscuit Baron. Let me show you.
yeah. I thought you were gonna say get into military stuff, but they probably are.
No, I want to show Biscuit Baron. There it is. That's Biscuit Baron's logo.
With his signature eyes.
I actually really love those glasses. It's just such a shit post. I love it. I love it. I just wanted to show that logo because it's really funny.
Then we have Mirsan, heavy weapons, armor, siege equipment. The
Murson is a military science conglomerate.
yep, Alex Kronbing Textiles. I believe, based on this, they are the ones that make the Imperial Navy uniforms.
Alex and Kronbing. Yep. Yeah, this is basically Hugo Boss.
Millennium Entertainments, the largest entertainment information combines in the galaxy, controls
Which, given that
gal.
this is written by Star Wars people around the time of the prequels, not necessarily, but remember, George Lucas has to okay all of this. This could be him giving a little bit of a dig at Fox News.
Fox, CNN, one of those
I would say
24-hour
Fox
news.
News because
Yeah.
because of the 20th Century Fox logo.
Yeah, we got Galaxy News Service, Tri-Nebulon News, Core Data Files, as well as Millennium Hollow, such as the Who Are You to Accuse Me Hollow series, as well as a number of swoop racing leagues and sports teams. Yeah, this is
Essentially,
Fox. This is Fox.
yeah, this is Fox.
21st century. I think that makes sense.
It makes sense because they
Next,
also have the rights to distribute Star Wars. It's a fun
yeah,
little nod to that too.
Bank of the Core, one of the top 100 banks in the empire, and they mint most of the authority's currency. Has a controlling interest in over 3/4 of the business loans in the sector.
Which makes sense because it still makes sense even now. Because reminder, even in Dave Filoni's fan fiction, one of Palpatine's first decrees as a chancellor was to remove the control over the banking by the Muns.
Well, he
Essentially, he took over their mints.
nationalized the banks, which that would probably be the other thing of why you want to go to the corporate sector. The empire won't nationalize you.
Well, they can, but that would break the agreement.
Yep. Then we have Chihuahua Amalgamated Pharmaceuticals Company.
If
Here's
I
your
recall,
pharmaceutical company.
if I recall,
And
these guys have the monopoly on Bacta as well.
perhaps, but understand that you have a pharmaceutical company with no regulations.
I mean, how else are you going to test whether or not this new variation of Bacta would allow you to heal from amputations? Quick, bring the mining accident victims and force them to take the medicine without giving any details on what it's supposed to do. Oh no, he
Then we have
became
the
a screaming pile of tumors. Another reject,
oh
get the
well.
new one.
Then we have Kuat Drive Yards.
So, oh yeah, Kuat. This one's actually even more fucked up because the Togs are interesting, but Kuat has its own history of insanity to the point where it's called Kuat Drive Yards because that's their term for the leader of their planet. They are known as the Kuat, and it is a den of vipers. No matter what era you're in, it is a den
Uh,
of vipers. It's also one of the main shipbuilding manufacturers that the Galactic Republic had,
yep.
up
And
to
then
and
you have
including the prototypes for the Star Destroyers were made by them.
well, I believe the prototypes were actually made by the next company, Rendili Star Drive. They make the
Well,
Victory class, as well
yeah,
as
the
they
Rendili
do
did
make
that. Basically, Kuat did a lot of
the
Kuat and Rendili competed with each other quite a bit, along with other smaller companies over who would make the best ships for the galactic fleets.
we have Cybot Galactica and Industrial Automaton, which these guys who make the 3PO line.
Well, not only that, but Cybot Galactica is one of the two legally prescribed companies that can build droids.
I think there's a few others.
There's a few
Oh, you mean
others, but it's the
after the
largest.
Empire? Yeah. Then we have Carflow Corporation, heavy mining, manufacturing, xenobiotechnology, and colonial exploration.
If you want to ever play a shitpost where a Star Wars universe takes place in the same one as Alien, this would be the company for you.
Then we have some of the contributing sponsors. Duct Unlimited, its
Yeah, if you know
Starship
those
support
ducts that you
systems.
sneak through, these guys make them.
ZZip Product Concepts, it produces luxury goods, including customized space yachts. Uh, Larry Moore Contracting, it just makes furniture.
Not only, oh no, it has a subsidiary known as Large Star Corporation, which builds space yachts, like the one that Palpatine used
Oh,
to have.
for Zip, yeah. I
Palpatine
would
used
say
to have one of them as a star yacht as a kid. That's the one where he murdered his family on and threw it into a sun,
oh.
if I
Then we
remember
have
right.
the Karelian Engineering Corps, which made the popular YT 1300 freighter.
Well, the YT
Millennium
series in
Falcon.
general. It's not just the 1300. There's older models like 1100s, but I think the more recent one they make is
Mhm.
the 1500. They still make parts for the
Um,
older ones because that's how effective they are.
they got Plex Grove Combine, which is a mid to low level banking service. The Trigdale Metallurgy, a raw mineral and crystal processing, known for its radioactive storage and reactor systems.
I think these are the guys that made the Zenfar as a race.
Hmm. The Archon Multinode Agricore, which is another macro farming company. It owns Flank to Go, the second largest fast food chain in the empire.
Also, if you're wondering, if you ever run a campaign where you have to deal with farm slaves, slaves working on the farm, Archon is usually the company that owns it because they own most of the agricultural land in the Outer Rim.
Then we
Not
have
all of it, but a
Sham.
lot of it.
I love this one. Sham Yafarg Welbing Fabrico and Associates. It is a PR firm made by the Twi'leks.
That's
It's
interesting.
believed, yeah, it's believed that they have a major hand in credit laundering for slavery rings, but they're unproven allegations.
So here's the funniest thing of all about that is, yeah, the Twi'lek as a people were fucked. They never developed space travel. They were mostly known for their culture, just kind of being, from what I understand, a Bronze Age society before the galaxy found them. After that, they realized that the most valuable item on their planet, because it's a desert shithole, was them. So a lot of slave rings legitimately started, specifically by the leadership among them, just so they don't get fucked over harder. Yes,
But
they
I
would
do
literally
love
send
this.
people to slavery just to avoid more of them being enslaved.
I do love this. We get 4 pages of companies
But I love
that
this
exist
because
in Star Wars.
you could do Star Wars Shadowrun with this, and that sounds fun.
Yeah. And again, you'd think like for an RPG they would focus on like military stuff or technologies. No, we have a furniture company.
We have fast food businesses, pharmaceuticals,
We have a company that makes infotainment brochures.
a company that literally just makes ductwork and vents, like an HVAC company for ships and other systems. Oh, another
And
fun fact about Twi'leks, by the way, is because they grew up on a desert world, they have stomachs like a cow, multiple stomachs. That's why they have a habit of getting fat if they're off-world, because they won't say no to eating.
hmm,
That's why Orn Ta is so fucking fat. Well,
I
that and
just
it's to
yeah,
represent he's corrupt.
yeah. I like this. And again, if you know Star Wars, they bring up Quattro Guards, they bring up Sora Sub Corporation, Galaxy Tours, which I believe was referenced in a throwaway book.
It was.
Uh, it's just all these little things that just really flesh out the
Yeah,
galaxy.
like Crowskin Fabrications, which their thing is just building they do design decals on ships. That's it. They don't even build ships, they just do the design details on them.
Or Novaplex. They make the
They're
Imperial
landlords.
line of luxury hotels. They just make hotels. They're
Oh,
the Hilton of Star Wars.
I love it. Oh, look, the Dwayne Millis Advisory Foundation. It's just a think tank.
It's a fucking think tank. It may have been related to the Empire's top secret cloaking device program.
This is also a nod to the military reformist ideas that came about during the 90s in the US. Because remember, this is just after the Gulf War. This is right when we were still trying to figure out why the hell we lost in Nam.
And to bring up something that else, Elsa06 said something about making it sound like Star Wars was always woke. It always had the political edge to it.
It had a political edge, but
Palpatine was supposed to be Nixon.
well, yes and no. I always thought that it was to rail against authoritarianism in general.
Yes,
It wasn't
but he
just
originally,
anti-fascist. It's just in
yeah,
general.
it was originally he wanted to make Palpatine weak because that's how he saw like Nixon, like as a puppet for other things. But obviously changing that. But you have all these corporations here that you can see as like y Disney could definitely like use these like little digs at other corporations. Have a Monsanto-esque company, have a BP
They would
company,
never do
have
that
have
because
a
that would
Tesla.
be reminder, they need advertisement money too. Remember how they kept leasing Star Wars ships to companies like Porsche?
Ah,
I'm not even kidding. They Porsche is also canon to Disney Star Wars, as is Coca-Cola.
but it's just like these things that you could like with the fast food chain thing. You could have like essentially you could have a Subway come out.
Oh yeah, you know
Hyper
what that would be cool?
hyper it would be called hyperspace.
Okay, hear me out. I have an idea for since the Coca-Cola thing is one I always come up with. Okay, hear me out. It is a soft drink manufacturing company who has expanded to include other chemical works like dyes for uniforms and costumes, but also it does some disgusting things with poison works, basically chemical and bioweaponry warfare, as a corrupt deal to become one of the lesser sponsors.
Perfect.
Basically, it started as a drink chain. It branched out into other things so it could get its hands on some of the corporate sector money.
But we should now go down to the actual corporate sector and how it works as a
Yeah, because there's a lot of the Red Star shipping
there's a
lines, which
lot.
is a nod to White Star. Like, look at all this.
Um,
This is really cool. I could spend
yeah,
hours just reading this.
which we could show the image of the diagram of the corporate authority because in the book it's not,
It's
it's
sideways, which
flipped.
will destroy your brain. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show this using my new patented. Okay, so we have Biscuit Baron. He's going to teach us about the corporate. No, no, not that one. The org chart. Here we go. Okay,
So
Biscuit Baron, teach us.
we have the executive board. Um, and I think to bring up uh, there are no rights for people. They're either consumers or employees. They have privileges that the authority can restrict at any reason. But you have the XO and the executive board, the president or the prex. You see, they got the imperial advisor. Um,
Yeah,
you
notice
then
that there
have
is still a shackle. Palpatine wasn't stupid. He always made sure there was at least a shackle.
temporary consulting committees, various Office of the Auditor General, Corporate Security Liaison Office, and then at the vice prex level, because remember, it's a corporation, always have a whole bunch of vice presidents. You have media,
Well, these
research,
aren't vice
legal.
presidents. These technically, I would argue, are
No,
the
no,
directors of their branch.
well, no, no, they are considered the vice prex.
Ah, just for the title. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got financial, resources, security, production, and territory administration, and then all the various sub branches that go there.
Also, you are correct, not Nito. This region essentially is if the East India Company came back, but worse than ever.
This is East India combined with colonial or Belgium's colonial efforts.
Yeah, that's about right. It's pretty disgusting. And yeah, basically that's a quick run through. There's an entire series of stuff that each of them have
Yeah.
authorities on.
But we can go see a nice corporate sector authority ad. Unfortunately, with something blanking out the page, we'll assume it's seditious propaganda and the person will be docked the penalties. The corporate sector provides everything from raw materials to finished market goods. It produces over 5 quintillion credits worth of goods every standard year. And hold on one second. Remember, 3% of that. That's 5.
That would be third. Okay, let me. 15. I think that's something like 15 quadrillion credits.
I got 1.5 e to the 14th.
Okay, 1.5 quadrillion then. I was off by a bit.
That is how many credits the Empire gets per year
You can see why
from one
Palpatine was
one
willing to do this.
sector alone.
Oh yeah, the corporate sector is legitimately, it makes more money than some of the core worlds do. Not all of them. Core worlds sometimes do more than they do, but the corporate sector alone is one of the most valuable sectors to the Empire.
So they go over with the various vice prexes and their roles.
And it's really neat to cover all this because essentially you're looking at the space version of the East India Company. Also,
Yeah,
industrial espionage is very significant in the area.
and it's pretty much allowed.
Basically, the Togs believe that if you're not able to keep your secrets, then it's your fault. It's very freewheeling. Essentially, it doesn't cause any trouble unless you get caught,
The other thing is that the corporate sector is trying to obviously get more effective propaganda.
which is where the media division comes in.
Yep. They say, observe the following example of a 20-second subvert ad. A new life awaits you in the corporate sector. The chance to begin again in a golden land of opportunity and adventure.
Or the following, which was broadcast on internal media frequencies. For more enjoyment and greater efficiency, data access is being standardized with corresponding rates. Remember, the more expensive the information, the more it must be worth. Consult your local OMM staff for more info.
And subliminal advertisements. Let us be thankful we have commerce. Buy more. Buy more now. And be happy.
Change better, faster. That's progress. Adjust, alter, accept, consume, and be happy.
This
It is
it's
a
literally
corporate
consume.
nightmare dimension.
Yeah. Get excited. Get excited for product, consume, and then get excited for next product.
Consume product and be excited for next product. I cannot wait to see Darth Maul crawl out of his gravestone again so that he can get his ass kicked by Ahsoka again. Fuck you, Dave.
We have a
Sorry,
stock
it's just
investment. Yeah.
it's the
And
dark.
I like
Let's read the
the,
good
a
stuff.
whole section on like just handling how financial transactions are run.
Yeah, I mean, it's the corporate sector. You have to. Public relations, this is very important. These are the people that basically hide the war crimes that the corporations do. And
Let's
the
see.
entertainment's the bread and circuses.
Yeah. Uh, legal. Legal takes great pains to avoid antagonizing Moffs in adjacent sectors.
So,
They'll
yeah,
hold this is they have an independent judiciary that hears suits between smaller companies and individuals. It's also lobbies for legislation to get special incentives or benefits.
hmm
The tribunal itself is lobbying the gov the other corporations.
Also, if you're
Totally
wondering, throughout
independent.
all of this, they give you major characters that you'd be dealing with, like Dr. Oscar Jing, who is a real character. Darcy Vunt. Like, these are all people that were either in the books or were made for this splat.
He's making a war wheel, a walker-sized gyro-stabilized disc.
I think they actually showed that in one of the Star Wars comics.
Probably, let's see, the financial division. You know, it establishes exchange rate to the imperial credit. At
So,
the time of this,
you know how Visa can single-handedly alter the deal and make it so that massive companies have to bow to it? That is what this is, essentially.
yeah. So apparently, 1 1/3 CSA credits to 1 imperial credit.
Oh, you
Uh,
know what they did that for? That's intentional currency debasement. That gives more loan power. That gives more trade power to them. It also allows them to, like, basically, think about it. You take the stronger imperial currency and then debase it. You can get more out of it. Basically, it allows them to absorb loans from the empire and use it more effectively.
let's see, stock
Sometimes
and
debasing your currency is actually a great way to get more buying power.
so with
It
stock and
also allows you
investments.
to use money more efficiently because you want to know why we got off of the gold standard? It was specifically so we could actually build larger projects because you only had so much in if you were
Yep.
pegged to gold.
Yeah. So CSA stock cannot be sold to third parties without prior approval, and when someone wishes to sell stock, the authority must be given first buyback privileges.
Essentially, they don't want to lose control over their consortium. This allows them to ensure that none of the major corporations get kicked off.
It's these subtle things that I'm going to be honest. I think they might be a little bit more evil than the Empire.
I wouldn't say that they're more evil. I would say they're more honest about what they are. But also keep
Like,
in mind, corporations in Star Wars are responsible for many a great things, like the first droid revolt when they intentionally didn't care that several of their models were faulty, and they became leaders of one of the worst and most violent revolts in history. If you're
attempting
wondering
to
why
poison.
the Outer Rim still doesn't like droids to this day, it's because of this.
Let's see what else.
Or how about the time that Zerka decided to run a slave empire that took the Old Republic to break?
Or again, declaring invading a planet because you had to pay more taxes.
Oh no, no, no! They invaded Naboo specifically because they did not want to pay the taxes that were forced on the hyperspace lanes because they became too safe. Basically, they wanted to refuse the toll tax, the toll road tax. If you're wondering, that
But
is what the Trade Federation was protesting. There was going to be, because they had control over the roads, the Galactic Republic wanted to make, I don't know what percentage was, but they wanted to take X amount from that. And that's the reason they invaded Naboo, the Force of Crisis. Well,
I
also
do like,
because
yeah,
Creamy Sheev
I
told them to.
yeah, I do like this with the Vice Prex Real Lanchuzor equipment, unlimited authority cash voucher. Money is not an object for a Vice Prex.
If you're a Vice Prex in this company, oh, I don't know, like, money's not a real concept to you anymore, is it?
It is not. Let's see. The authority also provides best prices for its goods to its contributing to its voting sponsors. It provides extremely competitive prices for contributing sponsors, and you pay the
Essentially,
highest price if you're
that's why you want to get
non-sponsoring.
on there.
hmm And the resource division. Let's see. They hire scouts to scan unexplored systems,
Basically,
essential
you
services.
are surveyors. So this is another thing I actually really like about this book is they are actually referencing real careers that companies will do. I'm not even kidding. So this is something companies will do. Like let's say with my cola company, let's call it damn imp cola specs or whatever, right?
Hmm,
Let's say I want an asteroid planet to build a chemical vat on, right? It needs, like it needs a certain amount of sun because I use solar system relays to power my shit. I would have to send the resource division as the company to assess my new work site on this planet that's uninhabited, allegedly, right?
exactly.
And what they might find, for example, includes there could be pirates there, which, hey, I could maybe bribe them to attack a company rival that might be trying to take my stuff, or I might have to get rid of them. Basically, the point of the resource division is to audit the land that basically they're the people that check the zoning to make sure things are up to par. And if not, they're the guys you have to bribe to allow you to build the illegal factory on that planet. Kind
Which
of.
then brings up supplies and allocation.
These are the
It
guys
is
that you have to bribe.
brought. They're extremely stingy with its goods. They do often, favor the authority personnel. So, however, sometimes facilities go months without replacing lightning fixtures or food supplies.
You don't need those. You don't need lights. Just hire slaves that have dark vision.
And then, of course, the
Oh,
security
food. Don't worry.
division.
We can just get like what race needs to eat the least? Let's just have them work in the mines.
Yeah. Then we have the security division, or the ESPOs, as they're called.
Which is actually, if you're curious on what the cover of what the thumbnail was, that's what they are. The boys in brown, they're sometimes called.
Then we have the production division, which we have scheduling, which is brutally unrelenting its production goals. You think the Soviets were brutal?
And this is why I like how Star Wars, you can say that it's woke, but you can also say it also shits on communism because production quotas is more of a communist thing, specifically a Stalinist idea.
Resource development is bases its information on research conducted by feasibility,
These
and
are the guys that basically work on the financial feasibility plans
wait,
for
wait, hold
growth.
on. They have both deliberately known to implement dangerous manufacturing policies to increase productivity.
Essentially, if you can manage to pull off a massive improvement on output, keep in mind that a lot of companies, in real life and in this universe probably, corporate authorities tend to get a little bit of extra money if they improve the metrics of their job. Managers tend to get more money if their workers are more productive. That provides an
Now, does
incentive to have them raise profits if they can.
now are the workers going to be happy? No, but my paycheck's going to be better.
Many of you may die, but that is a risk I and my bank account is willing to take.
And then we have feasibility, which suggests the feasibility of uses of new systems.
These guys are
They
sometimes
have
sent to be killed screaming.
no, no. These are the people who uh, deliberately classify sapient species as non-sapient to allow unrestricted development.
These are the people you go to if you need to justify why the Wookiees don't technically need pay. I'm not even
And then we
kidding. The fact that Shri Wook doesn't have a spoken language and is difficult to understand has been used on more than one occasion to justify why Wookiees are not sentient.
and then we have obviously territory and managing all of that, and then accountability. There isn't any.
It's what
Even
you
the
make of it.
Empire once had a notion of citizen participation in government. The Authority never had such a legacy.
It's to the point where the concept of accountability is something they fight as hard as humanly possible to not allow, at all in their. They actually have probably. Here's the reason that these guys are kind of disgusting. They might have a better intelligence agency just to suppress information than Compnor does. They might actually be even better at suppressing info than the Empire is, just to
Here's where we get
prevent
to, yeah,
revolts.
even worse. The sector just kind of has the ability to exercise all of its control that it needs. It does have its own guards. Companies also can have their own guards, but the Authority has the right to nationalize anything at any time. Uh, Obviously, if you're not a voting member, you don't have a say. Um, you're allowed to lease property from the Authority to establish your own corporations.
Eminent domain at any point.
And yeah, so you're able to start up your own business, but obviously when you calculate all the expenses and the startup tax, the pre-loan tax, the post-loan tax, the setup tax, the installation fees and all that, you're just a few payments away from breaking free of debt. But you'll always have to tack on more.
Or
There'll always be
alternatively,
another fee.
oh, it seems that there was an attack by the Rebel Alliance on insert minor world here. To cope with to deal with this, the Empire has demanded that we participate and add more and contribute more. Your little company has been volunteered for this great endeavor.
But there's always these small companies, so it brings about the illusion of choice. It allows people who are
Sorry,
very
but
individualistic.
your little manufacturing your little plumbing company's been absorbed by Soros Sub to basically contract it out to fix the plumbing on toilets and the ships.
Yeah, it is a managed economic system. It is not. It is a what would it be? Probably a libertarian capitalist Marxist utopia.
I would actually argue that this is the final. This would be what would happen if objectivism, the idea of Galt, ever ruled a country. I
Because yeah,
think
the
this is
author.
Ayn Rand
Well,
taken to its natural
actually, no,
extreme.
no. Because the Authority actually, because remember, it's voting members. If you remember, a lot of them were in manufacturing and mining, not in the output, but the inputs. They control a majority of this. They control the price of goods and the quantity of goods available. They have strict import-export controls. They'll have brand names of the same product. They overbill sponsor companies for shipping charges to and from the sector, and they pocket the excess profit, and the authority can write this off on annual tax statements. They will sell a Medipack that is available at 75 credits in the Empire to 150. There's a 100% markup.
Yeah, they actually go into details about this.
And
They actually
there's a
give an
great
example.
paragraph here on all non-authority businesses pay an excess value added assessment. You think import tax or VAT is is burdensome? This
I would
is
argue
written.
it is.
Yeah,
VAT can be, if VAT is too high, it is. I would say if
yeah.
you go, once it goes over, I believe 5 to 10%, it gets insane.
But they give an example. This is paying income tax on income that they didn't earn.
Yeah?
So the example they give is this: you buy a blaster from the authority for 350 credits. It has a value added assessment of 80 credits. The company sells it for 650. Because of the tax laws of the corporate sector, they can only claim the 350 purchase as a business expense. So while they may have on paper uh, made a 300 credit profit, they've only made 220 credits, and they must pay tax on the 300 credits of income.
This is a little evil system that allows the top guys to just get a little bit more money.
Like
Also,
this is
yes,
this
Coyote, a Star Wars cyberpunk campaign in the corporate sector sounds really fun.
like this is obviously not like, Death Stars and everything, but this is fucking evil.
It's evil in a way that the Death Star just is hard to grasp. The Empire
Like
will erase a planet. These people will erase your people's entire ability to ever find freedom.
and make a profit off of it.
And keep in mind, they lie like they breathe on the advertisements. So imagine you're like a poor fucking refugee from after the Clone Wars, right? Like let's say your planet got fucked up in one of the battles. And you hear about this new little initiative on an area of wild space and you see these new, these new safer buildings and oh, it's like the core world but nicer, but they have like incentives so I can actually afford. You go there and then boom, your company goes under and you're now essentially a wage slave working at the equivalent of space McDonald's.
And they control travel in and out. You can't leave.
Also, you had also just to even keep a roof over your head, you had to sell the rights to your existence of not just yourself but your children. Welcome to wage slave. Welcome to bondage. There's a reason I think this place is actually even more fucked up than the Empire.
This also does contribute to smuggling of things like water,
Water tax, water rations, and
and don't forget the Vaz.
reminder that the supply guys are not very well known for being generous.
And then we have the living and working life. It is a frantic pace. You think Japan's workaholics are the salarymen are worked to death?
You think that's bad? I would compare it to South Korea, where their expectations are actually killing them. Their population is actively collapsing because of that.
So
Like this is South. It makes South Korea look like a kind day.
they do design it so that, yeah, people do have days off. So there's just so much of a surplus of labor that they can always have things running at a 24 hours a day at full capacity.
Also, keep in mind that any form of union work is illegal, as in you will be sent screaming into a black site to be tested on things that can't really make it to the light of day.
Factory disasters, cave-ins, and manufacturing incidents are more frequent than the Empire, but because of standardized injury and fatality benefit rates and the outlawing of class action lawsuits, the accounting departments in the authority just absorb the losses.
Yeah, let's say you're in a
There is
mine.
no
Let's say
wait,
you're in
wait,
the mine. It collapses. Your arm and leg gets crushed, and you're found 3 days later screaming, as the guy behind you is dead. And they just write you off. They write you off and send you to Cybot Galactica to experiment on new. To just shut up and to also make you more productive. To give you new new animatronic arms and legs, and that's
Like
also attached to you as a debt that you also have to pay the VAS for because this was
uh,
experimental work that they did not make profit on.
like the Empire's TIE fighters don't have shielding. That's because they sacrifice that for increased speed
Well, not
and for
only
the
increased speed,
more
but
swarm.
size. Basically,
Yeah,
it would have been too large to be classified as a fighter if they shoved it on there. It would
but
affect
that's
its
just
performance
practicality.
dynamics.
The Authority would design a TIE fighter like that, but classify it as a fighter with shielding to maybe get benefits. But factor in, okay, probably the recall rate and the negative press, it evens out to a 1% profit margin. Okay, let's sell these to resistance fighters.
I would say a better example would be so the Empire would sacrifice the shield in exchange for speed and basically argue that this, well, also warp capability, not warp capability, hyperspace
Hybrid.
capability.
Yeah.
Like they'll cut out the hyperspace drive with the idea that, well, they're going to just be protective systems for our star destroyers, right?
Hmm.
What the corporate sector would do instead is they would just make it so that even the minimum systems aren't there and
Ah, but you could
advertise it
purchase
as a
them.
planet defense unit,
Yeah. But obviously, if you wanted additional defense benefits, you could obviously purchase the subscription packages.
which would then take it to the level of a standard TIE fighter or TIE defender. But it would
The other
cost
thing,
twice as much, and on top of that, you also still have to pay the VAS for them.
yeah.
So an extra 10% of the price is levied towards you so that the company doesn't have to pay the VAS itself.
Oh,
Because think about it like that. You could have it be this is the extra cost that you keep under the table so that they don't have to pay the VAS. The consumer does. Because that's what the company would do to avoid it.
like, let me be honest, this is
Or they
good,
would cut
right?
your check. They would cut the
Like,
workers on the ship lines tech, like pay.
yeah, like compare this to Moonpunks, where they briefly go over that basically it's a corrupt shithole
Well,
that
they never
doesn't care
explain
about
it.
human rights.
This goes into disturbing detail on one of the things that you can do to fuck with them.
Like, not even Eclipse Phase, I think, went this ruthless.
Well, that's because
In
Eclipse
just
Phase's concept was basically anarchism's the best approach, especially in a post-scarcity society where you have dumb AI that can work together to essentially do the difficult management systems for you when it comes to running an anarchist commune,
so that
especially
could
with
be an
3D
interest
printing.
that could be an interesting plot thing where you to fuck over the corporate sector, you just get an ancient, like extremely advanced computer to just run all the calculations, thereby destroying all of their accounting
Well,
department.
you're saying that, but I mean, there was a character like that in Knights of the Old Republic, and there are droid models that their entire thing is planning like that. There are droid models and computer systems that are designed to automate and do a lot of the dump load mechanics for that.
Ah, but
Also,
the,
Coyote says, I feel that any campaign is set in the corporate sector would either be just utter comedy or completely serious with no in between. That sounds about right because that is essentially what they kind of did with Han Solo and his story
yeah,
here.
but then we go into obviously there's no class structure. Everyone is competing to be at the top. It is a
You have or you have not. There is
yes.
no class.
Then they go on to talk about consumerism and
Profit or no profit. There is no equity. Yoda, I didn't take for you to be an anarchist. Anarchist? No anarchist am I. Dignity to the Get him! He's speaking ill about the corporate authority. Quick, quick, young Luke, hide my ketamine for me. Wait, you could talk normally? I'm too stressed to speak in my normal way. Ah!
but then they go on from Han Solo
You,
describing
you,
the
you know the
corporate
CSA
sector.
would totally get on Yoda's ass for all the
Yeah.
ketamine he is bought without actually distributing.
Yeah. The of just how complex, how busy, how much stuff is sent to you, like in the
Actually, if you
media and
think about
everything.
this also is a really great. I think the person who wrote this might have also had some insight on pyramid schemes or multi-level marketing
No,
because
here's the yeah.
a lot of
No,
this
here's
is
the other
burning
thing.
through.
One thing that Han says. One thing I get a kick out of is what you'll find hidden in the game shows and comedy programs they export to the rest of the galaxy. If you record some of them and play them back, you'll find all sorts of strange messages, subliminals and subverts. Like they need to persuade people to go to the corporate sector. It's got to be experienced to be believed.
I also wouldn't be surprised if there were also little hidden messages, like you hear subliminal messages going, "Help me."
Now, those would be expunged by obviously by the next group, the security division.
True, but they're not going to be perfect. There will be occasionally bum programs that do that.
So,
Also, I do
uh,
love these details that they describe from Han Solo's point of view here. Because again, he's
so
one of the few guys that actually went there and did a lot of work there and came back.
yeah.
Because that's the thing, if
So
you go into the corporate sector, odds are pretty good you're not coming out unless you're one of the elite.
the authority looks for people who are, you know, willing to be able to protect the authority and its property.
Also,
So
Han
they'll,
Solo, just for a bit of insight, Han Solo compares Espo or the boys in brown. In a lot of ways, they're not really like they're not like the army or stormtroopers. He compares them closest to the ISB and the Ubiquitet.
the basically the intelligence and security apparatus.
He doesn't see them as they're not asset
Well,
officers, they're not security. They're more like spies in their own right. Spies and agents and security, they're the people that kick in the door and drag you to Lubyanka's prison. That's what they are.
but they'll send you to Lubyanka's prison not for killing somebody, but if you're harming authority property. They work hard to defuse potentially violent situations to preserve property and valuable skilled workers. And
These are the people
uh,
you would call crisis control managers, and they would also be bedecked in plasteel armor that is rated to resist certain levels of blast or shot fire.
but they also are like Singapore, wanting to make sure they have a clean image. They do invest in making sure that you don't steal, vandal, or slander.
Yeah, if you've accidentally dropped a death stick and tried to snub it out on the sidewalk, these are the people that would not only force you to pick it up, but also imprison you for clearly being a bad influence in the neighborhood.
They give us obviously their organization, the same sort of diagram, basically the same thing, based on either if the ground forces, the picket fleet, detention task force, the situational enforcement, or local enforcement. But what's interesting here is the authority legal codes given to a person who has an immigrant labor visa class 5. So, um,
So
all,
another
all
thing you could do is you could play paranoia in the corporate sector.
kind of. Um,
That could be fun. Like instead of
yeah.
friend computer, it's friend Espo. It's your friend, the Espes.
So your class A infractions, embezzlement of sums up to 10,000 credits, industrial sabotage, terrorism.
Which reminder, 10,000 credits in the corporate sector, that's not even a rounding error.
Yep.
Rounding errors
Um,
start when you get to the billions.
by piracy, all that. That could get obviously arrest, exile, life assignment to a labor colony, forfeiture of all credit, and possible execution. Um, for your Class B infractions, embezzlement of sums not exceeding 10,000 credits, conspiracy against the authority, credit fraud, misuse of registered copyrights or symbols, promoting unionization, arrest, 5 to 20 years, assignment to a labor colony, fine of 1 to 3 years salary.
Yeah, it's just the
Class C,
idea of having a union to cover for injuries could take you for 20 in a supermax.
yeah. Class C,
Oh, you know what
vandalism
we should
against
do at some
property.
point? Eventually, we should cover what's that horrible mega prison that Star Wars has? The one that's like really fucking horrible.
There's a lot.
There's a really bad one though that I think you go into in Bounty Hunter.
Hmm. I'll have to look that up. Uh,
Ba
um,
basically, the Grand Old Republic had some really disgusting supermax prisons. I don't know if they've ever
Remember,
been brought up, but they're really
remember,
horrible.
Narkina 5 from Andor was probably a Republic building.
Narkina 5 from Andor was actually kinder than the one I'm thinking of.
Oh,
Oh,
but
don't
let's
get me
see.
wrong,
We
it's still bad, but it was still basically yeah, there's a lot of terrible ones. No, Kessel was run by gangs. There's I forget the name of it. I'll have to look it up at some point.
yeah, but we've got vandalism of property, ownership or possession of illegal weapons, dereliction of duty such as lateness for workshops or
Yeah, if you're like
mishandling
10 minutes
equipment,
late, they can technically rate this as a Class C infraction if your boss is an
slander
asshole.
or liable towards authority programs, personnel, or products, 1 to 6 months salary fine, demotion, possible 3 months to 5 years in a labor colony, and then Class D,
Yeah, just saying your
which
boss
is
is kind of a bitch can get you 5 years in a labor colony.
disorderly behavior during a work shift, lateness for shift duties, unsafe or unapproved work behavior, disrespecting behavior towards authority, programs, personnel, or products, 1 to 3 months fine, demotion, possible 1 month to 1 year in a labor colony.
You could say
Notice
that the
how all
newest
of these are
TV
labor
show.
colonies.
Notice that the TV show. You could say that TV show sucked. Like imagine you're doing water cooler talk, right? As your corporate slave, as a corporate drone. You just say, "Yeah, I don't like that TV show." They could get you on this.
Yep.
You could say, "I don't think that show's very good. It sucks." They could hypothetically, if they were asinine enough, and they can be, they could force your butt to work 1 year in the mines.
Let's see. The authority also recruits imperial prisoners and puts them as espos. That is fucking terrifying.
Makes sense though. I mean, reminder that in some camps they would actually have some of the more hardcore criminals serve as guards.
Yeah. But then we get to the picket fleet.
By the way, here's a
So
nice
these
image
are
of Han and Chewie basically having to fight their way from the Espos.
yeah.
I like that.
Uh, so unlike the Empire, they really don't have like shipbuilding capacity.
I mean, they kind
They
of
can
do,
just
but not really, because the Empire
well,
basically contracts most of their yards.
yeah, they can just buy fleets. Which, funny enough, if you've ever played uh, Thrawn's Revenge mod for Empire at War, the corporate sector actually has that as a mechanic where every so often they will rotate a roster of additional ships you can buy.
I
And
think
most
there's
of these are
also a
just
mod
old
for Empire
ships.
at War where you can play the Tog Consortium.
Oh, well, everything pretty much at this point. But the picket fleet includes a lot of older ships. They reference here the Victory class Star Destroyer, the Invincible class
Oh yeah, the Invincibles are
ships.
really old for those wondering. Like we're
Yep,
talking, these are the guys that
thousands.
basically were around during the new Sith Wars.
Yeah, and
They also kind
Marauders.
of look like floating cigars, if I remember right.
Oh yeah, um, they also, you know, hire former, I guess, former Imperials that are maybe washed out to
Uh,
serve as their.
Basically, so here's what the picket fleet does. A lot of Imperial office, so the Imperial Navy, as with the Imperial Army, is very cutthroat. The Navy even more so than the Army, because the Army has kind of always been supplanted by the Stormtroopers for heavy action. The Army's main thing is mostly keeping peace on worlds that don't have Stormtrooper presence. The Navy is kind of, because of this, more important than it, and those officers are very ambitious. If they don't get their rights as a captain early, if they are pissed enough, they will usually serve in the picket fleet for a couple of years to build their credit up.
Also, Coyote, yes, the thought about players on a mission to fire a rocket launcher only for security to show up and ask them for their permits.
The Espos can do that if they're well rounded enough, or if someone catches them.
And then, of course, we have obviously the detention task force.
Because yes, the corporate sector has. I've mentioned that there are some nasty supermax prisons in Star Wars. I think the corporate sector has them beat.
Yep, because the next one is Star's End. It is the to be the most modern and impregnable incarceration facility in the galaxy.
It's so bad that this might be the prison I'm thinking of.
No, because this not the one from the Bounty Hunter game, but uh, it's an exam. The detention task force has examined the Emperor's social policy. It concluded that there's a 90% likelihood of increasing criminal and New Order resistance activities. Thus, the demand for prison facilities would steadily increase for many years.
So the corporate authority realized they did the numbers. They saw the Tarkin doctrine, and you know what their thought was? Instead of suggesting that this will just cause more rebellions, their idea was we can contract and build more prisons for the Empire and take them off for us.
And then who knows, if the Empire gets defeated, obviously the New Republic is going to want to put those people in prisons. Guess what we can sell them?
Win-win. Win-win.
And if they destroy those prisons, we could just sell them used.
We could sell no, if they destroy the prisons and all of the like let's say all of them prisons get vented, we could just sell them as oh, I know. We could sell them as towed mining colonies. We just patch up the holes. They can turn the detention centers into work bunks, and they can just go send them out to asteroid fields and mine. Or if they need prisons, they can just buy them back from us and just cart them somewhere else. Because a lot of these prisons are designed to float in space as essentially asteroids.
So apparently, Star's End's project was to prevent prisoners from creating their own power structures. They just stored them in suspended animation.
This is not the first prison to do this, by the way. There is actually a jet. I don't know if this is a Disney canon thing, but there is a Jedi prison that did the same thing. Basically, for dark side force users that were too dangerous to leave, and because Jedi tend to not like to kill unless they have to, the Jedi did have a prison where they would trap people essentially in stasis.
And then again, I have this great idea where how would they know their sentence is up?
And that's the other thing. Think about it.
Also, this reduces staff to a minimum, and prisoners in stasis require much less storage space. You don't need to worry about food, how cleaning, you know.
You know, actually, this reminds me, since this is another series that has its own tabletop RPG game, this reminds me of the Cybertron prison complex where the Combaticons were stored. Because
Mm,
remember, their sparks and their central processors were ripped from their bodies, set in stasis, and trapped in a locker. Essentially,
on a floppy.
That's what Transformers were. That's how Transformers were handled as prisoners.
Yeah, just spark extract them, put them away. I mean, technically, you could put them on a floppy disk.
That's what they
According to the
did.
Marvel comics, Optimus Prime's mind fit on a fucking floppy disk.
Well, in this case, I think their minds were stored on a CD drive, essentially. Because I
Yeah.
remember that's what happened. Starscream broke into that prison and took basically 5 war criminals and turned them into a combiner team.
Unfortunately, the Autobots didn't have those methods. They just put them in regular prisons, and yeah, in some of the comics, it doesn't turn out well for them. But we have now an advertisement for Star's End, a model penal facility
It was an
in a
idea
dangerous
so good that Megatron himself used it.
in a dangerous galaxy. No one can afford to settle for less than the best. In which we have Security Division saying, "I strongly protest this blatant disregard for all security precautions. This is a prison, not a luxury resort."
Whoever wrote this pamphlet is completely unqualified for this job.
And the person who wrote this or who wrote this note is for the vice president. So that person's getting not just fired, probably put in a penal colony.
No, they were put. They actually were the first person put in Star's End,
Well, yes, as we see here, they will have the following features: defensive turbo lasers,
which most Star Wars
6
prisons already have.
defensive ion cannon, the Kuat Drive Yards V180 Planet Defender ion cannon, double the firepower of the V150, a sensor communication
Essentially,
core.
this was just a higher performing Planet Defender can't model.
Yep. Subterranean
By the way, that
facilities.
actually reminds me. Do you want to know something really fun I learned about recently?
What?
Okay, so you know how the R series of astromech droids have different levels of functionality.
Yes.
An underperforming R2 unit, uh, Cortex, is slapped into an R1. One that is accidentally above its design specs, that's an R3 unit. It's the same model. It's just whether or not it's accidentally better than normal.
Oh.
An R3 unit is just an R2 infrastructure that was built better than normal on accident.
Explain. How do the R4 have a bad motivator?
R4s and R5s are different. Basically,
Oh.
basically the only differences between those two are actually what they're programmed to do.
So technically, R3D2 would be superior.
because he was built better. Also, he would have a clear dome because they were so proud of building a better model of the R2 unit's brain that they wanted to show it to everyone.
Hmm.
That's
Well,
why
let's
the
see.
R3 units had clear caps.
Let's see. Stars End allows for the full-time incarceration of 24,000 prisoners.
That's actually surprisingly low.
It also has an easy linkage with the Lictor-class Mandalorian dungeon ships.
Okay, so this is a real thing. So the Lictor class Mandalorian dungeon ships, they originally were used. If I remember right, I think they were originally used for two things: troop transport, because that's why they're able to carry so much. But they were also used as mobile prison works by the Mandalorians during their wars. Essentially, those that
Yeah.
they thought were worthy of further combat
Oh,
would be captured and turned into slaves.
if you it's the Imperial dungeon ship from uh Dark Empire.
They also were built by the
As seen
Mandalorian
in the
Empire.
Dark Empire source book.
They were, but they also were genuinely built by the Mandalorians. I'm not kidding. The original models were used by like Mandalore the Ultimate on his great fucking war against everyone else.
As we see here, Stars End, the prison of the future. Today.
I like the little ad that they made.
Yeah. But we obviously get more details onto it. Then we get into the authority executives and operatives. A lot of these are characters from the Han Solo books.
Because again, the first of this is actually Han Solo going to Star's End.
A guy, Vice Prex Mirkovig Hirkin.
I think that was one of the characters from that book.
Uh,
Dear Madam,
some
this is with regard to the current specifications of the Star's End plant. Despite a few minor cost overruns, I am, as ever, highly confident about the construction. Your office has a standing invitation to come to a tour. Rumors of systems failures are just that, rumors started by disloyal members of my own staff. They have since been appropriately punished. I have personally overseen every aspect of construction. The armoring on the main spire is the finest available in the galaxy, far better, I dare say, than many military factories. You see, since we are here in the corporate sector, and are paving the way, as it were, it is only fitting that Star's End be the finest prison in existence. Franchised facilities for the Empire can be considerably reduced in price, although the quality of the prison would understandably suffer. Why, it's so well constructed, I have ordered a residence for myself and my wife to be built at the top of the detention tower. You gotta love the type of person. It's like, ah, yes, the ultimate instrumented suffer. In fairness, this is also the same empire. Palpatine built a throne room just so he could lounge as he watches a planet explode. Like, I can see it. I love it.
he's got to someplace comfortable for that other throne. That did not look
By the way,
comfortable.
perhaps you've had a chance to try the Unberry pie recipe, or the Unberry pie recipe she gave you at our anniversary banquet last year. She would love to hear that you enjoyed it. In any event, we shall be residing at the base, confident in our safety and security. If I remember right, isn't that how doesn't Han Solo like hold them hostage or something at some
I think
point?
so. I think so because that is the guy. Um,
Nice. I just
he
wanted
also
to
had
read it because
yeah,
you gotta love snooty corporate types. Oh,
yeah.
also this beautiful image here.
Also has a so he's wooing, I guess, the fourth daughter of the Duke of Opataji, Nira Opataji, and then he has a bodyguard which is just a big bipedal lizard, Ulran Shan.
Oh, there he is. Look at that lizard. Look at him. Let's see. To have bodyguards in the corporate sector, this isn't because there are frequent assassination attempts. It's the suggestion one might be endangered that conveys prestige. So, legitimately, this is something that social ladder climbers will do. They will hire just random toughs to pretend to be bodyguards for them, just to pretend to be important in this sector.
I thought you were saying that in real life because
That
I think
happens
in
in
real
real
life as well.
life because that's what Hassan Piker fucking does too. He just hires the nearest Craigslist black man that's bigger than him to defend him. Just, that
um,
standard Janissary energy.
Yeah. Then we have this guy, Udamin. He is an executive. He's a corporate executive.
And I think this is Udamine, this little cyber rat man.
Yeah. Then we
That's another
have
that's another benefit that the comics and books could do is they could actually have more radically non-human characters.
then we have Heart and Parn Gora Fiola of Lord. I think she's human. And
Yeah,
I
she
guess as a
is.
relation.
I think she was one of his early love interests,
Yeah.
or at least they had a mild thing.
Yeah. Galandro.
Also, much like Princess Leia, she also was a political science major. I'm not even kidding. Leia's major was political science.
Where?
It was
At
at
the
one
M.
of it was at one of the core world universities. In fact, that's actually how she got interested, if I remember right, in the rebellion. And I mean, also her father being a key member, but like, I'm not kidding.
Yeah. Then we got. It's another gunman. Then they give us in chapter 7 some of the
Also, yes,
principalities.
Galandro does have that wacky mustache. That's like, these are major characters from the books.
Let's see. Personalities of the sector.
These are major
These are.
characters that are just kind of brought. I think I don't know if they were made up by West End or they're from the book. Some of them
I
probably are
think
from the
they're
book.
they're from the book because I recognize one. This cat man, or no, cat woman, Auture. She was one of the Triani
Oh yeah, the Triani.
Rangers. Um, and they
Yeah,
were
they are.
yeah, they were on the frontier. But then I believe the Corporate Sector Authority came in and enslaved her entire species
Well, they
because they
clearly
could.
need them.
And
They
remember,
clearly are
no
needed for the
word of
great
this got
project.
out.
Yeah, this was one of the Triani that Han worked with.
We had an Espo informer, Torm, Roa, businessman and former smuggler, Will, a former entertainer,
Ro is also a character from the books. Lil,
the Glyads.
the more Ewen Glyads.
Yep. Then various characters on the fringe, outlaw techs, a guy by the name of Doc.
So these ones might be made up, or they might not be. Basically,
No, I
these are
think
the
these are
people on the
also
outskirts.
Jessa. That's
So if you're
Doc's
wondering why,
daughter.
so Outlaw Text, since we're just going to very quickly skim over these characters since they are from the books, I recommend you read them because they're pretty good. Outlaw Techs basically are called that because they are breaking a key taboo, which is working on technology and devices that the corporation uses that's technically violating their copyright and technically violating warranty, both very massively imprisonable offenses. And on top of that, you're making your own stuff without paying for it. These are the
That's
guys you
not
go to if you're a smuggler and you need things quiet.
because it's not going to register on any codes.
Hey, they mentioned the Z-95. That's one of my favorite fighter planes
Yep.
from Star Wars.
Then we've got guy by the name of Snotoid,
Sonod. Sonod.
Sonioid smuggler, and then slavers.
Well, I mean, you need slaves to work in your plantations
Yeah.
in the corporate sector.
Because again, if a species wasn't sapient according to imperial law, it forcing them to work against their will is not slavery. It's domestication.
Correct. And not even
With
kidding. Again, that is the logic behind the Wookiees. Also, not Nito. Honestly, the hostage situation went about as well as it could have gone. Yeah, it did. Zlarb. I know. Yeah, Zlarb's a real character from Star Wars.
yeah,
I mean,
listen,
all of them
it's
are.
a
Even if
weird
they're made up
yeah,
by West End Games, they are
like
real.
this guy, the crime lord, Plovo 2 for 1.
If I had to make
I
a
think
crime
he's
lord in the
human.
corporate sector, I would definitely have the term 2 for 1. You know what it also would be? If I had to make my own crime lord, okay, hear me out. His name is Gorman. Buy one get one free. Just random sales slogan at random sales slogans at the end for their names. 50% off. Why is he called that? Oh, he cuts people in half.
But then we get to obviously everyone's favorite part of Star Wars, the starships.
Well, yeah, starships are really fun. And there's a lot of these were brought up because there's a lot of stuff in the corporate sector.
And this is where we get the Victory class Star Destroyers, based off, I believe, the original idea for the Star Destroyers.
Yeah, notice the cigar.
No, no,
Older.
no. That is the Invincible heavy cruiser.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, I was right. I love these older design ideas though because they just get brought back specifically for this. Hey, this references Zim the Despot and the Alsacian
Yep.
conflicts.
Because here's what. Where the corporate sector is right around where Zim the Despot, who was famous for actually being able to fight the Hutts thousands of years ago. Tens of thousands, I think. But you get, let's see here, the Marauder Corvette,
Also, Not
the
Nito says it reminds me of how people like to name huts after food brands. Well, that's just good naming conventions.
yeah, Pizza the Hut.
Yep, Pizza the Hut.
I
Uh,
can't think of any. I can't actually think of any others.
uh, no, I can't think of any others
Surprise,
besides.
Goya the Hut,
Yeah, Goya the Hut, Pepsi the Hut. Let's
Nabisco,
Nabisco the Hut. No, not be the Nabisco. No, that's his mercenary.
Nabisco.
That's his mercenary buddy. That's like some alien from the Outer Rim. Nabisco, and he's like a big chocolate monster man, like 8 foot tall, covered in like kind of looks a little bit like the Thing, but those are scales.
Oh, that could work. Let's see. They give us the Millennium Falcon.
I mean, you have to. This is the Han Solo
Yep.
trilogy. If you don't mention the Millennium Falcon, you're doing it wrong.
The Rena
Dorito the
Seed
Hut. Yeah. The Frito Lay
Dorito.
Cartel. Those are clever. I like those.
Yeah.
I like those.
Um, the Rena Seed Bulk Hauler, the Eddie Lighter, the Eye of Shiblazar. It's a
And I said ball collar, Eddie lighters.
it's an Utig Abad Dimmel attack ship.
Let me take a
Truly,
Uliga
that really
Baja
does sound
Dimel
like name.
attack ship. It's antiquated. Do they explain what this is? No.
No, um,
Basically, so
it,
another cool thing is since you're in wild space, you'll find a lot of really old vessels that are just kind of lingering in space.
or another alien species starship designs.
Yeah, you can
But
also
then
find occasionally ruins from either dead species or ones you've made dead.
we've got Gig Fighters, the TIS Zeta
Triani
19.
patrol boats.
Yep. Uh, then the Starfighters, the Authority IRD.
Oh, they also mentioned
It
penances, passenger liners, which, again, another really cool thing you can do in a Star Wars story that I think could be really fun is you could do like the Poseidon adventure in space, where it's just you're part of a luxury liner that's in the middle of a disaster after a failed Corsair attack. Oh yeah, the
now
IRDs. These things kind of suck.
they look like a piece of shit.
They basically are a stripped down TIE fighter. Not even kidding. These were designed strongly off of the TIE Interceptor design. All power, all short
They
range.
they were beaten by the Outlaw Tech Band's own ships.
Basically, these are as stripped down as you can make a TIE fighter, as much as you can. It is all engine, all gun, and that's it.
Then we have the Z95 Headhunter.
This is the predecessor to the TIE. This is the predecessor to the X-wing. They're also pretty good. Like the Z95s are actually, if you modernize them, they are capable of at least fighting on the same level as like the original trilogy's models. The
Then we do
Z95 is
have
actually pretty good.
then we do have a bunch of other basic ground ships. Work vehicles, they come in a bewildering array of forms. Basically, I guess, tracked or floating cars.
Grav sleds,
Grav
cargo
sleds,
lifters. I mean,
various luxury vehicles, and
hey,
a lot of these,
one
again,
of them's made by Tagco, the Cargo Hopper
yeah,
102.
a lot of these you can actually see in the Thrawn's Revenge and a lot of other mods, which credit to the modders for being able to take these designs and putting them in a 3D context.
Thank you for doing that. Please stop being obsessed with making things canon by pretending Disney's canon. It's not.
I will say, you know what? I do like the U-Wing. I like some of the ships.
I mean, to be fair, there are things you can salvage from Disney stuff, but it's not a lot because their design principles are just off.
Then again, I'm pretty sure back in the day you would have had people said, well, no, can't use the Clone Wars stuff. We should use the stuff from Thrawn's era Clone Wars. That was the correct Clone Wars.
True. I would also say that you could also go, why is prequel ships so much nicer? And you can just kind of respond with, I mean, it was after a destructive 3-year war in an empire that is worse, in a lot of ways, financially worse than what the Republic was for the average citizen. Because
Actually, Andor actually gave a bit of good explanation. They're actually dumbing down the technology.
I think that's just copium excuse, but I'll give him credit for at least giving that as an excuse.
Yeah, we get even more retro tech of various
So
sort
the
of,
Z95 Coyote it's about 60 or 7. It is old enough to have been used in the Stark Hyperspace War.
yeah.
It's old. It is essentially, it was the main ship that was actually originally used by fleet patrols, at least in the beginning of the Clone Wars.
But we still
And
use
it
the
was getting long in the
B-25s.
tooth even then.
Yeah, we still use the B-25s, and that's almost 100 years old.
Because if it's a good model starfighter or a good model ship, all you need to do is just modernize the equipment. That's why you can have it, because the Millennium Falcon, the YT 1300s, those are like a couple thousand years old. They are ancient at this point.
But they're
But
reliable.
but they're reliable, and it doesn't matter. You just build a modernized shipping equipment. You just build modernized engines, or is the common trait, you just modify it illegally. Most of them are used by smugglers because they're very easy to modify.
Um, I do like some of the Espo equipment, like their
There's some
walker,
great.
which is
Oh,
it
I
is a
love their
scaled
walker.
down version of the ATSD, similar to the Republic's old all-terrain personnel transport, the ATPT.
Yes, they did. Yes, that's another thing. I actually really like it because of the cockpit. Also, yes, Cloud City was their first product. Yeah, Incom has a lot of interesting stories about it. I actually really love these 90s style drawings of these vessels.
The patrol skimmer, the hover van, and the mobile detention wagon,
Well,
which
you need someone to keep the prisoners in.
has 45 prisoner stations where arrested individuals are placed in stationary arm and leg binders. They are forced to stand with their arms over their heads for the duration of the journey. Two technicians are inside at all times to properly place prisoners as well as conduct questioning.
The reason it's two is because I'm pretty sure at one point Han and Chewie had to got trapped in one, and they had to knock out the people that were watching over them.
And of
I
course,
wouldn't be
as obvious,
surprised if that's the reason why they had two people in it.
and like the Strikebreaker riot control vehicle, it
Well, you
has
need something to
rear-mounted.
smash faces in of people trying to unionize.
Oh, not smash faces. It has rear-mounted repeating blasters that have a field of fire and are controlled by an internal gunnery module. They have a fire-linked grenade motors, which are controlled from the front cabin, and the stun barricade. When a full-scale riot is in progress, the telescoping rams will be extended outward to burst through any physical obstruction.
Please stop. Elon Musk's penis can only get so erect at the idea of having things to stop people protesting his SpaceX launches.
Yeah, but it's not automated, and it has to be run by
In
people who are
fairness, his
competent.
version of the Strikebreaker riot control vehicle would set on fire before it even got there. It would just explode. It would just go off in an ammo explosion when the cheap Chinese battery exploded.
And I call it the Skyrim.
He would call no, he would call it the Skyrim, but he'd like make this K look like an X,
You're right. And then we get equipment,
which is also fun.
anti.
I love this is one of the fun things about TTRPGs is just it may not necessarily be the most fun to look at on a stream, but it's just fun to look through and
Yeah,
just talk about these things. They're really cool,
like anti-concussion fields, molecularly bonded armor,
which is something we've actually experimented with in real life.
and they reference here that Zim the Despot had a set of armor.
Yes, he did.
The other thing they reference here are like stasis booths.
Actually, if I
Legend
remember
had
right,
it,
isn't Zin the Despot the first person to invent like his? Wasn't his empire like the first one to use the prototype for blasters?
maybe.
I forget if it was Zim, but basically there was an early empire that was founded it- where they had not necessarily like it was a type of blaster, but it was very inefficient. And it was more like a heavy weapon.
And we're talking 25,000 years ago.
It might have been Zim. He either invented that or the repulsor lift. It was one of the like Zim's empire did introduce some technology. I know that.
Yeah, beam tubes apparently.
Yeah, that's how Zim the Despot conquered so much. Basically, he was the first guy to invent blaster weapons.
But they bring up here that stasis predated the Republic, but no one's have any proof. I have a feeling it was later, maybe like the Ricotta or the Quar or one of those ancient species
If I
had them.
had to come up with the reason for stasis booths being a thing, there are a couple of people I could see it being invented by. The one I would most think would be the Infinite Empire, and here's why. Okay, hear me out. You torture a person to near death. Their screams power your dark crystal, right? But you don't want them to die since they're so efficient at making the screams needed to power it. So you invent a thing to put their screaming, bleeding carcass in so they stop dying so that you could just barely get them back to enough health so that you can then torture them to near death again.
Yeah.
That sounds
Wow,
like
what a great
something the Infinite
empire.
Empire would do.
Yep. Also, I do realize with that image, I realize what the stasis booths are ripped off of. It's ripping off Judge Shred, the ISO cubes.
It is, but I'm not going to complain. It makes sense.
No.
It does make sense if you think about it.
Yeah. Also, let's see.
Also, if
Weapon
you're thinking
detectors.
about it, Transformers also ripped off the ISO cubes because this looks exactly like the this little section here reminds me of Starscream pulling out like Onslaught's fucking spark.
Ah,
I could see it,
we
can't
got
you?
yeah, yeah. We've got weapon
It's just a good
detectors.
idea.
We have a riot shield.
Well, you need riot shields in order to bash the faces of the hoi polloi, not understanding that today it is 9:30 and you should have been in work 35 minutes ago.
Also, I realized the stun baton, made by Mirsan. The Espo armor by AK Textiles.
AKA Space Hugo Boss.
They got the E11 blaster, which involves a. They also use it for a torture called the burning, involving setting the weapon on a very low power level and searing the flesh of the torture subject.
Which actually reminds me, so something that the Disney version of Star Wars doesn't seem to understand is that, yeah, blasters and lightsabers, they cauterize and incinerate things they touch. If you get stabbed in the stomach by that or shot in the stomach on a higher setting by a blaster, you're not necessarily dead, but you're gonna need severe surgery to salvage what's left of you. And if it's a lightsaber, you're probably fucking dead already. Let's be fair.
Riot guns, they're not particularly accurate, but Espos use them as a constant fire mode. We've
Yeah,
got
I
the
could see
flame
it.
projector, dart shooters,
They also
flechette
have
launchers.
blaster
Oh,
carbines, which are just cheaper, just cheaper
mhm.
models.
Oh, and disruptors. Those are disintegrators.
Oh yeah, yeah. So
Remember episode
there's
5? No disintegrations?
well, that's also because Boba Fett had a rifle that did the same thing. You actually saw him hold it when he was riding the weird monster in the holiday special. That rifle can
Oh,
also
that.
disrupt.
Oh, they made that the disruption, right? Oh, that's cool.
Well, no, that's a different gun that also has a disruptor setting to it.
Oh,
He
that's so
has it.
cool.
Yeah, that's the disruptor that he had. He also had a
Oh,
pistol, if I remember right, specifically
yeah.
for
Oh,
disintegrations.
I also see this. Sound guns. The Espos will use sonic weapon,
Makes sense.
as they
Well,
are
well,
riot
think well,
police.
think about it. You know how Thorians can use their four throats to basically be a sonic weapon?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. Like, think about it. If you have an alien species that can do it, why not use it yourself to stop people from refusing to work long hours?
Oh, and hold on, I love this on page 120. They give us diagrams of the weapons, and then on the next page, labels
Oh,
of what they are. And of course, yep, they get the 11 right. Is that
I
the
just
sound
realized that
rifles?
the Espo mortar is like a knee mortar. That's neat.
You get your flamethrowers. You get your knife.
Stun grenades, I see that. Let's see. Yep. Yep, they got it
Let's
right.
see what else. Shipjacking kits, snooper goggles, which allow you to see normally even near darkness. Director unit and slave collars, quick draw holster,
Also, yes,
and
slave
with that,
collars were, if you're wondering, yes, they were a thing before the prequels. It was such a good idea that I think George might have took it from this. But the idea is very
um,
simple. It's a collar around your neck, and if you go X amount of distance, it just blows your head off. Or
and then
detonates a
they
portion
actually,
of your spinal column.
yeah, they do give a mechanic speed drawing. So if you want to do like a cowboy gunfight, you take your blaster skill or the appropriate specialization, divide it in half, and you either put that in your um, what is it? Like your accuracy or your, you know, or your speed skill. So you can put more into one or the other. So see who draws first. You rolled your speed draw die. Whoever gets higher fires first. Then whoever fires first rolls to see if it's accurate. So you could be incredibly fast and miss. Or you could perhaps, because of the way the dice might work, where guy has a lot in speed, but he all rolls ones, and then you get one speed dice at a higher number, and you just shoot him quickly in the
Well,
head.
they give two good examples. The first is Han Solo and Galandro doing a duel. Han at this point is not as experienced as Galandro, and essentially they decide to keep accuracy at the same, but the speed dice matters enough that this is how Galandro wins. He had 10. He had basically double the dice to work with. So obviously he does draw first, and he manages to hit Han. The other example they give is you can try to dodge a quick draw, and in this case, Han uses his 5 dice to speed draw and 3 to accuracy. The stormtrooper uses all 4 of his dice to dodge. Han manages to hit him. And if the stormtrooper's dodge roll was higher than Han's speed draw roll, the stormtrooper would have been able to add his dodge to the range difficulty. So basically, if in this case the stormtrooper can't dodge anyway because he burned his dodge trying to avoid the quick draw.
Also, Cody's asking if Luchino scenes used were sonic weapons. I believe they were.
Yeah, they did. They used sonic weapon. They basically dabbled in a lot of weird experimental tech. There's a reason why one of the many origins of the fucking Death Star was something they made. You don't see
But
a weapon restriction speed draw. So speed draw with an E-web. Yeah, you can speed draw with an E-web if you have the
well, no,
gas
it
trap.
says they must be used for an appropriate weapon for quick draws. A blaster pistol, a hold-up blaster, or heavy
Oh yeah,
blaster
yeah. It only
pistol.
works on pistols, but you can do this with a disintegrator to be a big asshole.
Yeah, again, you're doing this to replicate a gunfight, and because this was not before the special editions, I feel like Han would always be able to shoot first.
Oh no, the first example they gave, he loses that duel. Han can lose. That is the thing.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Then we have an armored spacesuit, and then we have droids, which
Droids
are
are fun.
related to the droids within the book series. So you've got this guy Bolex and another guy named Blue Max.
Also, yes, one of the droids' names is literally Bollocks.
Those Bolex.
No,
Oh, no,
Bollocks.
no, it is
Like that. The joke is he named himself after testicles.
hmm,
I believe he's also seen in the Droids cartoon.
maybe.
I think him and Blue Max might have appeared in the Droids cartoon once.
I think Bollux was hiding something in his stomach.
He was.
And let's see what we also have. Freight droids, agrobots, that they could be as large as Imperial AT-AT.
Oh yeah, Agrobots. So one of the fun things about them are there's not just Agrobots. There's another version that's called I forget what they're called. They're like called the IC2 or something, where it's a not a terraforming device, but it's basically a road paver and automated factory droid, and it's like the size of a building. Agrobots are the similar size. Basically, certain types of droids are really fucking big. Like robo haulers. Robo haulers are also extremely large too.
No, I think they might be at the same side. Like looking at the droids of the corporate sector and their off-brand C-3PO for the Robo Valet,
No, you see the robo hauler. The robo hauler is like the size of that agricultural thing that you see
as
on the
well as
page before
yeah,
it.
as well as the Robo Bartender looking like that one robot from the '50s Cantina in Episode 2.
Yeah, mainly because that was something that was probably George probably had a design like this, and he's like, you know what, I'd like you to use it in more in the expanded universe. It's a good idea. Also, yes, RoboHack. Some droids are legitimately just vehicles.
They have,
if it has a
yeah.
developed enough brain, something like that RoboHack can just be a droid.
I mean, it's basic. Yeah, it's basically just a automated car.
That's something that the Han Solo trilogy did.
And then we've got combat droids, including gladiator droids such as the Mark 10 Executioner, coming with a neuronic whip, a flechette canister, flame projector, vibrosaw blades, a blaster rifle, a missile launcher, a force pike, a sonic cannon, a spike club, and a vibro axe.
Essentially, they can choose from a variety of weapons. They usually don't have all of them on hand. Also,
And then we
yes,
get to yeah,
gladiatorial fights to the death are a thing in Star Wars. You usually only find them though in places like the Outer Rim and in wild space, mainly because the Galactic Republic they go, oh, it's too barbaric. In reality, it's because they hide their street brawls, from polite society, so they don't look depraved.
yeah. And then
Also,
we have the
combat
aliens.
robots, well, in newer canon, are banned specifically because of the Clone Wars. Because think about it, when you have quadrillions of robots storming through from the outer rim towards the core, you kind of don't want people to get their hands on cheap technology that you can just train to fight for you and just die for
Yeah.
you.
But now we have the aliens.
Because the corporate sector did have aliens that were deemed non-sentient, so they could be used as slaves.
So we've got the humanoid Lordians. They were enslaved in the Khan's disorders, and they forbade their masters forbade them from communicating to each other. So they instead developed an intricate language of subtle hand gestures, body postures, and subtle facial tics and
By
expressions.
the way, they are baseline humans. Humans spread pretty far throughout the galaxy during earlier parts of galactic settling.
Or they were
Lordians are
planted
just an
there.
example of
We
them.
we really there is no real set idea on where humans emerged.
The most likely explanation is Coruscant, aka Imperial Center, was probably the human homeworld, as
About
well as the
Freyler then.
homeworld as the as well as the same homeworld as the Mandalorians.
Well, no, it's a Tong.
The
The
Tong,
Mandalor. Yeah.
which
Let's
which
see.
which is where the Mandalorians came from.
Yep. We've got the uh. So we got Lordians. We have the Camarians. Actually, no, let's go and they explain the Khan's disorders.
It's
Uh,
important to know because the Lordians basically they have super sign language as
yeah.
their ability to speak.
But this was 4 millennia ago. Hint, hint, if you know what that era is. So the public was preoccupied with other conflicts, border wars with the expansion of
This would be
species.
like during one of the Mandalorian Crusades, and also I believe around the time of Darth Nihilus.
Well, that whole era is like a few decades.
Yeah, but it's
Um,
like around the same period,
so Muriel's empire lasted for 3 centuries
which is a
until the
blink in the
Jedi.
eye galactically.
Which, if that's correct, did they put this in the Old Republic game? I'll
They
have to
might have
check.
referenced it once or twice.
But so the Jedi Knights were able to free them. However, this killed over 500 million Lordians and 5 billion other beings.
Yep.
Let's see,
And
the
the
Cimmerians.
Republic, by the way, as it usually does in the face of such atrocities, yeah, they just sat on their ass and did nothing.
So the Cimmerians are a nocturnal species. They're, I guess, this bug race.
Yeah, they're the bug people. You like the bug people? There they are. That's the bug people.
Recently, a smuggler inadvertently made himself a part of the rituals of the hologram show.
Yeah, Han
He thought he was
Solo
providing.
accidentally
Wait, no.
stumbled onto it.
He thought he was providing entertainment, but he started a water cult religion. Since then, conflicts among the Badlanders returned to previous levels as raids against the mountain
Oh no, this
Tisquas
wasn't Han
increased.
Solo. I'm sorry, I got confused. What
Yeah.
happens is they get sucked into it because of that previous smuggler. Yeah.
And then Sonioid came back with a copy of Varn, World of Water. He recruited several prominent Cimmerians to serve as custodians, while he continued his regular trade route. Since then, there have been no uprisings, and the smuggler receives his payment in native pottery and trade goods.
Legitimately, this is actually a mild shitpost nod to. So there was a Star Trek episode where, during an early anthropological study of a pre-warp civilization that was essentially, I think, nearing the medieval period, a dude accidentally left a copy of Gangs of New York or the Crime Families of Chicago, basically an like a biography of the Chicago outfit. And the alien race adopted mobster mentality. Legitimately, they wore the suits, they talked the way that you do, yeah. Like they just recreated 30 Chicago.
Also, the first smuggler there
Was a different
was
guy.
Han Solo.
Oh, it
No, it
was
was.
Han. I could have swore he was responsible.
Han fucked up so bad.
Amazing.
When we get the Lefrarians, a humanoid species descending from avians.
That's why they have the pointy nose.
The Lurians, furred humanoids from the frigid world of Lur.
I don't
The
have art of
faux,
them.
the faux Finians. Um, let's see,
They
the
developed
faux
nuclear
Finians.
fusion.
Oh, and they were contacted by the Republic thousands of years ago. The assistant manager on Bonadad being one such individual. I thought it was a Bondad. I thought it was on the moons of Logan or whatever. Whatever. Next one is the Rakirians.
Well, there's
They have
also
a
the
highly
Shlee.
and yep, the Shlee. Look at that Shlee.
They have trouble understanding what other things are. They live by
I guess
scent.
I guess one of them was a table. And
Oh, I'm
then you
confusing it with a different one. Sorry, I apologize.
no, I think those are the two things. I guess. Wait. Nope, wait, no. The image there is a Rakirian. The next one's a Sleege.
Yeah, that one's the Rakirians. Whoopsies.
And then the Triani,
The
which
Shlee is the table.
they controlled their own space and peace. Then the corporate sector authority expanded. Uh, let's see.
I
The
think the
authority.
Triani might be referencing the Caitians from. Well, no. This would be before Master of Orion, because there is a cat race in there. It might just be. It might have just been, or it could have been a nod to Wing Commander. I don't
Yeah.
know at this point.
Uh,
There was a
then there
lot of
is the
cat aliens for some reason
yeah
during the 80s.
yeah. Then there's the Tynans, water-loving citizens integrated with the galactic civilization. They're short-furred mammals who spend nearly as much time in the frigid waters of the planet as they do on
Oh
land.
yeah, these are the seal people.
Oh,
I think these are the seal people or otter people.
no. The otter. That was the otter character that we saw earlier.
Yeah, it was the otter people.
And then we have creatures, the ball creatures of Duron. I
Yeah, this is a real creature, by the way.
think they're just squigs.
Yes and no.
They're a pack of balls.
They're basically a shitpost on the tribbles
Hmm. Then you
because
have the bloods.
yeah,
Yeah.
apparently the odd coloration is part of a survival mechanism. Ball creatures typically live in large herds where they reproduce very quickly.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's a shitpost.
It's a little
Uh,
triple
then we have
shitpost.
then we have blood sniffers,
By the way, Not Nito has a hypothesis for why there were so many cat aliens. In the 80s, the only way furries could commission their terrible art was through TV commercials and
mm.
and series. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Then we have
It didn't devolve
yep,
into weird. It didn't devolve. It did not
yeah,
devolve into weird pornography. I'm not going to complain. Blood sniffers. Look at him.
it's a bloodhound. Then we have dinkos,
Which I think might be a shitpost of the dingo.
could be. The Dravian hounds and the howl runners. And there's your guide to the corporate sector. Hope you enjoyed our wonderful trip. Please remember to tip your waitress. Remember, it is mandatory. The Espos will beat you if you don't.
It is mandatory
Let's
to
put.
tip, and on top of that, don't forget to pay your 80% TAS VASS. No, VAAS. And
Hope
also,
you have a lovely stay. Remember, you can go anywhere, but you can't leave.
you're here forever.
Which again says, here's the real problem with the corporate sector. It still exists in lore. Uh, by the end of the timeline, the Legacy era, it's not really mentioned. There was apparently a slave revolt, but the corporate sector as a whole still exists. The New Republic did not tackle this, which means while all of the atrocities are going on with the Uzun Vong or with various empires and Sith, these corporations are still making money, still profiting off suffering and misery and exploiting untold, perhaps billions of beings
Well, in
for
fairness,
the
I
sake of
think
corporate
that was
greed.
because the writers on their projects just forgot about it. The expanded universe is large enough, it's kind of easy to forget things that were set up. But it also kind of is a dark reflection on what happened with the original Republic, especially since the prequels expanded on its fall. The New Republic ignored the corporations much like the Old Republic did. And it's something that has repeatedly happened because the Star Wars galaxy is a cycle. A cycle where they don't seem to understand how to stop it.
Well, you see, because they'll defeat the Sith, and then one guy will come about who believes that he's the only being in the universe that actually exists and brings back the Sith. And then you'll have another guy who's being manipulated by an alien who will now bring back the Sith.
By the way, Coyote nailed it. I basically, after the Vong did their thing, I don't think the New Republic could have actually stopped the corporate sector anymore.
Especially since they probably gave all those great medical packages, obviously at a discounted price for those suffering, provided that they, have a brief stay within the corporate sector to pay off their goods.
They also might have allowed and lent their picket fleet for a price.
Oh, absolutely, they would have.
So, all in all, that is the corporate sector and Han Solo's magical journey through it. Much like with most West End games, I really like this book. It's not really useful for a player necessarily. I mean, it could be, especially if you're planning on doing corporate sections. What would you rate it out of their rating systems?
Hmm.
And for those curious, the rating systems, it tops at amazing, which is a book that is a must get. Good, which is a really good book that we would suggest. Decent, which is, it's a pretty solid game. If you get it, there's no complaints. Playable, it's not great, but you can at least do something with it. Garbage, which is just bad. Trash Fire, which is holy shit, there is nothing redeemable because at least in trash you can pick something that's good. Then there is the Why So, which is it's so bad it's hilarious. And then there's Deep Hurting, where it's just so bad it hurts. And also there's not a game. True Namer.
And then True Namer. Yeah. Uh, I would say decent. Big fan of Star Wars, and I think this would be really good if you are trying to explore like a non-traditional Star Wars game where you're trying to maybe go more talking about corporations than necessarily fighting ancient Sith lords or vile imperial warlords. What really got me though was again those 4 pages of those companies, because each one of them is its own adventure. Like you could make a story out of any of them.
So I'm actually going to rate this just a bit higher. I'm going to put it into low good. I'm agreeing with Not Nito on this, where the reason I would rate this as good and what puts it slightly above other West End Games titles in this franchise is it offers an entirely new antagonist to fight. A lot of the West End games deals with the Sith cultists and so on. Like let's say it's after the Empire, you're dealing with the remnants of the Empire. You're dealing with Thrawn. Basically Imperial stuff. What this book
Hmm.
does is it gives you a new antagonist that's not the Vong. It gives you a new way to play Star Wars. It allows you to essentially come up with shadow runs and other corporate running things. I think that puts it slightly above just because of that. It has great character moments that actually feel like it's written in the point of view of Han Solo, which is always nice. Like it actually kind of plays with the character's point of view.
Oh,
It
oh, very much
covers
so.
early Star Wars, which usually is forgotten about, except when Disney decides to wear its skin saying, "Do you love me still? Do you love me?" He says that they say as they puppeteer Darth Maul's corpse for the 18th gajillion times and dangle keys and
Yeah, that
jewels.
yeah, that does bring up an unfortunate thing. Baron Tag is referenced, and actually no, not referenced, is shown in the New Star Wars stuff.
Does he have his
Um,
glasses?
no, he has a version of the glasses which it looks more like cyborgs and it's
No.
Cyclopses things, but with like red
No.
eyes. It
They
is.
should be wacky visored shades because the entire thing is he's supposed to be like an 80s corporate raider. Lean
And of
into
course
that.
they give, and of course it seems like, at least given by Wikipedia, they give more of a reference, well, more reference to the sister than him.
Well, the
They'll
sister
bear,
was smarter than he was, but
yeah,
I will say that
actually,
that's done because Disney is desperate to turn this into a princess series for whatever
and
reason,
also
and
be,
they don't
well, this
understand
was
that.
for the Doctor Afra comics, and also
Oh, fuck
apparently,
that. No,
yeah,
no
he
one
was just
bought the Doctor Afra comics. There's a reason
the
they kept
head of,
rebooting.
yeah, the head of manufacturing.
Hey, remember the time that the terrible version of Indiana Jones managed to defeat Darth Vader and shat on him? But no, let's talk about good. This book I would rate as a low good specifically because it gives you an alternate way of play. Like it gives you new campaigns that you can work with that are not just either fighting the Empire or dealing with its remnants, or alternatively fighting the rebels. If you want to play an Imperial agent. It gives you something new. It gives you some new ideas, some new campaign things. This is a low good for a GM. And if you're a fan of Star Wars, if you really do like to read up on stuff, West End games in general is a great way to pick up lore. I would say as a player, this is just a decent. It's just kind of a low decent. If you like to chew through lore, it's good, but otherwise, it's just a
Yeah,
decent little
that
play
is
book.
one of the great things when going through the West End games, where it's like I'm unsure if the lore that I'm reading, because I can recognize it, came from the RPG or it was referencing something else.
Some of it's from the RPG, but a lot of it is also from the expanded universe. So yeah, all in all, I like the book. I I do recommend it if you particularly do like if you want to play a Star Wars game and you want to try a different version besides Edge of Empire or Age of Rebellion or whatever the Jedi version of it was. I've never played that version of it. Give it a shot. West End Games is basically dead as an IP. West End Games is dead. So you're going to have to do some searching. That's why I did not put a link to where you can get this in the description. I'm sorry about that, but you can root through some dumpsters and get your hands on it.
Yeah, if you use a D6 on a holocron, you'll find it.
Alternatively, what you could also do is you just look for there's a company called Womp Rat Press, which is fans that have essentially taken the dead IP and kind of revived it. There's an excellent reworking of the original core book from Womp Rat Press. So that is my thoughts on this. I think up next, um, do you want to talk? Do you want to kill another sacred goose, or at least another ecosystem? And by kill it, I mean study it like the
Well,
augurs did.
I was thinking either that or in honor of the alien finally coming to Earth, we review the latest Alien RPG.
Oh, the second edition of it, or what was it, the Colonial Marine one?
No, the second edition.
Okay. I'll put that to a to a poll. Wow, I am. Oh no, oh no, they have poisoned me. The corporate sector has poisoned me. You
No, the
have to
corporate
fit.
sector doesn't poison you. They just provide enlightening medications, often at a reliable discount for anyone. Please head to your
Oh,
local
I have to take
pharmaceuticals.
more of it. I have to take more of it. Okay. So as
Consume
I'm
more.
taking my space medicine, I'll put a poll for whether or not you want us to look at Shadow Dark or to look through the Alien Second Edition, which probably changes stuff and has stuff in it that I'll really fucking hate. Mainly because it'll include stuff probably from Alien Welcome to Earth, and it will include stuff from Romulus, and I don't give a fuck about Romulus.
But besides that, remember everybody, the Corporate Sector Authority is a wonderful place of opportunity and adventure, provided you pay the fee.
And provided that you're willing to, not only the fee, but also if you're willing to put your effort into it, your life's effort.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.